Good morning, everyone. Oh, I see a fan is coming for my autograph. All right, I think we're ready now. Good morning, everybody. Hello, good morning. All right, I was about to treat you like my kindergarten students. If you can hear me clap once. I hear about 15 claps. Hello, last week we counted. Last week we did the numbers. Y'all remember the numbers? All right, if you can hear me clap 5 times, go. Mr. Jules, tell him mother sent you to school. Huh? You weren't good at math? All right, let's try this one more time. On my go, if you can, oh Lord, they hear thing. These Lucians and easy now. If you can hear me clap 5 times, go. What, CX, you have a hard time marking all your papers. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Unleash. Give yourselves a round of applause. Here are some of yesterday's takeaways. Hello, that's my copyright. Yesterday's takeaways. Follow the money. Unleash your potential. Strengthening national ecosystems. If you're only talented in your own city or island, maybe your brand is not strong enough. Please your audience. Don't win by losing yourself. Arts made me. Creative people pleaser. Don't give and believe. Don't give up and believe in yourself. Keep working. 1 US equals 3.5 Riris. Don't just focus on your craft, focus on your brand. The great and good believes in the creatives. Lionheart, Alison Francis, they were awesome. And Keith Nurse too. That's what somebody said. Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Victor Hugo. Ladies and gentlemen, unleash your potential, unleash your energy, unleash your creativity. Welcome to Unleash Day 2. Those were yesterday's takeaways. Today we prepare for tomorrow's takeaways, or today's takeaways. You get it, right? Yeah, you get it. Ladies and gentlemen, he's no stranger to the stage. Actually, you met him yesterday. His name is Simon Frederick. He's an artist, photographer, filmmaker, and director. He is one of UK's 100 most influential black people. He has created, produced, and directed multiple award-winning television series, such as the BBC's Black is the New Black. They've gotta have us, becoming one of the first black titles to ever feature on Netflix. We talked about that yesterday. His portraits in the National Portrait Gallery made history as the largest addition of African American sitters, acquired into the gallery's permanent collection. Additionally, Simon Frederick was the co-host and lead judge alongside Isabella Rossellini in Sky's Pan-European competition, Master of Photography. Simon is currently in rehearsals directing his first play, Unseen. Well, he probably did that play already. The Untold Breast Cancer Stories of Black Women, which opens at the end, well, it opened at the end of April. He is currently prepping for his first contemporary art show in 10 years, Man's Demons, and his screenplay was recently picked up for development with plans to shoot the movie by the end of this year. Let's welcome back to our stage Simon Frederick, artist, photographer, filmmaker, and director.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm not going to ask you to clap again. I saw how badly that went the first time. Okay. Just want to clarify one thing. My collection in the National Portrait Gallery is not of African American sitters, it's of African Caribbean sitters. Yeah, that collection was created from a TV series that I made called Black is the New Black. And during that series, press again. Oh. Yeah, during that series, hopefully we'll get something up on screen soon. During that series, I had the opportunity of photographing some of the UK's most prominent people. One of them being the person that I'm looking at there. Oh, here she is. Yeah. Yeah, one of them being my good friend, Naomi Campbell. Naomi's portrait has traveled the world. I mean, it's been seen in Australia. I mean, it's literally just gone all around the world, and it's been a fantastic opportunity to see black portraits shot well going around the world and being appreciated not as black portraits, but just as beautiful portraits. So, this is the title of this talk, An Alternative Education Journey to Self-Taught Success. What does that mean? Well, as we heard earlier on, I'm an artist, photographer, filmmaker, broadcaster, judge. I do all of these things, yeah? But when it comes to my education in these things, I don't have any. I never took a photography course in my life. I've never taken a film directing course in my life. You know, some people will say, well, how the hell did you get here? Well, that's what I'm about to tell you. So, the thing is this, is long before I became a photographer, I wanted to do photography. I remember being in school at about 16 or 17, going into my first ever photography course. I sat down in the classroom and the teacher started to put up on the blackboard F16 minus F.2, etc. And I looked at that thinking, hang on, I thought this was going to be fun, right? But this is about mathematics, and as you said, Mr. Jules, I was neither good at mathematics as well. So I got up, I walked out of that class. Believe it or not, I didn't pick up a camera again until I was 38 years of age. True. This was my first ever professional gig, was photographing Erykah Badu. This is my first ever professional photograph. Now, I remember that day very, very clearly because this was an accident. This wasn't meant to happen, yeah? What happened was, a few weeks prior, some friends of mine were giving a concert at London's Jazz Cafe. And I took a camera along, and I took some pictures. Now, their manager called me the next day and said that the independent newspaper wanted to do a feature on the band, and they didn't have any pictures, so could I send them a picture, which I did. They printed that picture, full page, big newspaper thing in the Independent. A few weeks later, the picture editor of the Independent called me up and said, "We would like you to go and photograph Erykah Badu." And I said, "I'm not a photographer." I was a creative director of an ad agency at the time. So I was like, I think you've got the wrong person. Anyway, half an hour later, and her offering me £1,000, I went to Brixton Academy to do this shoot. Now, when I arrived there, I had a very small camera. I mean, like literally about as big as that, yeah? My pass saying photographer was this big, yeah? Now, at the time, when you went to do photography at concerts, there is a pit, and that's only the place where photographers and film crews were allowed to stand. So there were a lot of people there that I had hired. I knew these photographers, and they were looking at me like, "What are you doing here? And where's your equipment?" It's like... But anyway, through nervousness and probably having an eye, I made this picture, yeah? After making this picture, I caught the bug. I decided that I wanted to give up my very highly paid job and become a photographer. So I started going around taking pictures of everything that I could, anywhere that I could, and I put together a portfolio, which I was very proud of. Now, I used to work at Elle magazine, fashion magazine. I had a very good job there. And I went back to see my old team there, and I showed them my portfolio. I went to see the picture editor, and I said, "Here's my work." He went through the work, and he said, "Don't do it." I went to see my friend, who was the assistant art director of Jamaican extraction at GQ magazine. He looked at my work. "Don't do it." I went to see about 12 different people that I really admired, and all of them said to me the same thing: "Don't do it." Now, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm stubborn, Grenadian, a stubborn Grenadian at that. I didn't listen to them. Now, that could have been very delusional of me. You know those people that go on to, American Idol and all of these things, and they believe that they can sing because their family tells them they can sing, but actually they can't? Well, I could have been that person. Yeah, I could have been the guy that couldn't sing but believed that he could. But I believed that I could be not a good photographer, I believed that I could be a great photographer, and I believed that all these people were wrong. Now, I decided that I was going to not listen to everybody else, and I was going to do what my heart told me was right. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, because it applies to all of you here, okay? So I'm going to go back a bit, because I did study something, and that was marketing. I was at college studying marketing, communications, and public relations, and it was boring. It was dead. It was all about statistics, qualitative research and quantitative research, and I was in the classes literally falling asleep until I found out about Marshall McLuhan, the granddaddy, godfather, the big dada of marketing, because this man is all about the emotion of marketing, what you feel, yeah? Why people will, as he says, it's what your propensity is to do something based on your feelings, yeah? And I understood his language completely. Now, this is his famous saying from his. The saying is actually, those who control the medium control the message, yeah? And what that means is this, is that basically anybody who controls the mediums, yeah? You control the message, you control what people see, what they think, what they hear, yeah? Now, that means that whatever goes out on Fox News, or what's the network here, GB? Yeah, GVN, whatever, yeah. That what you get, what they decide you're going to see is what you're going to see, is what you're going to learn, is what you're going to understand, yeah. Hollywood, everything. This is what this is based on. We control the media, we control the message, yeah. You know, an old filmmaker said to me one time that the propaganda that's been told to us about black people has been literally fed to us through the Hollywood system for years. And that happens to be a fact. Now, what they didn't plan for in this, the medium, those who control the mediums control the message. What they didn't plan for was people like you creating your own content and putting it on YouTube. Nobody planned for that. And that, my friends, has changed the game, right? Completely and utterly changed the game, because now you control your medias and you control your message. And that's really important. Now,
That's going to be on top.
Oh, let me go back. I'm going to play you a video. It's some friends of mine. We made a little video for you, okay? And hopefully the messages in this video will apply to you, okay?
That's going to be on top of my head?
Yeah.
For so long, black culture has been seen as a subculture of white culture in the Western world. But where do you think black culture actually sits today?
Everything that comes out is born out of the originality and that thrum of black culture. No disrespect, Kylie Jenner wouldn't have lip kits if not for black culture.
The question appears, are we culture?
Generation after generation, black, predominantly youth, come up with world-changing sounds. The richest artist in the world is black. The Beatles, with their incredible sales, they're the only group to have more #1 albums than Jay-Z. And their whole foundation was black music. They've said it themselves. What that indicates to me is that our intellectual property is valuable. I see black culture as too big for the word culture.
In a scroll of graffitied questions about race, the title appears, The Outsiders? Directed by Simon Frederick.
I head this way.
My name's George Mpanga. People know me as George the Poet. I do spoken word. In this country, culture means something very specific, but across the Pan-African universe, this culture that we keep generating and sharing and bouncing off of each other from continent to island to continent, this thing is our alternative knowledge system. It's how we understand each other. It's the reason why Davido and Popcorn can link up to make a hybrid Afrobeats dancehall song and shoot the video in London. 20 years ago when I was growing up, the vibe between Africans and Caribbeans in my environment wasn't the healthiest. But we healed that through black culture. We carved a space for ourselves in Britain through black culture. We found a transcendental form of brotherhood and sisterhood and togetherness through black culture. Culture for us isn't what it might mean for everyone else. It's our ticket. It's how we're gonna make it make sense.
All of that different art, all of that great stuff that uplifts us. It's no surprise that in many sections of culture, black culture is culture.
We're like the best kept secret that everyone knows.
We're here to not only celebrate, but to accelerate innovation.
And we're here with values, and we're here with a moral compass, and we're here with excellence, and we're here with art from the heart.
Because really, what people love about Black culture is this. It's the, I don't care, I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna build. I'm gonna dream. I'm gonna do it. And in spite of you trying to do this, I'm gonna do this.
There are no guidelines or no rules around the enjoyment of Black culture. There's that line the kids say on social, oh, this person can come to the cookout if they do one thing that seems to be in alignment with Black culture or Black understanding. Oh, they can come to the cookout. That's how we've always been, to our detriment. Because sometimes I think it's that come to the cookout thinking that got us on certain slave ships. Not everything that presented as a friend was a friend.
I feel like the world at large has had Black culture soaking into it from everywhere.
Blackness has power now. That's what this generation is able to do. They're able to be like, I can be unapologetically Black and still excel. I can still enter these spaces and bring Black ideas into these spaces and let them excel as Black ideas, not Black ideas on a white product.
You turn up that music, you cook that food, you put some seasoning on whatever you're cooking, and we are good to go. And we will invite you and befriend you. When we're talking about Black culture, from whatever country or continent, they bring a certain flavor. And you can't help but be put under a spell of sorts.
I think that we are one of the greatest generations of the last century. If you look at the African artists that came out in our generation and just Black Americans, Caribbean Americans that went to the continent in the last 5 years, posting on Instagram, listening to Afrobeats, that pushed 1 million plus Black people to Ghana at the end of 2019. Marcus Garvey didn't take that many people. W.B. Du Bois didn't take that many people. It was the creatives and it was the people that went over there and was just like, I gotta post this because, man, that's what our generation's doing.
So, the reason why I asked my friends to come and speak to you today is because that story is your story. Yeah? It's your story. Yeah? Yesterday, I was energized by the things that I saw, the things that I heard. You know, I'm energized by the fact that we are here in Grenada at this conference talking about innovating, talking about being the first to do something, talking about doing something that no one else in the region has done or is doing. Yeah? Now, there is one thing that I will say about that, and it's a little lesson that I have, yeah? And it goes back to the beginning of my story, because I could have just stood here and just tell you my entire story for about an hour, and I only have half an hour. And, you know, it would have been about how I got through and what I did and everything else, yeah? But that wouldn't have helped you, because this is about you, yeah? And the reason I'm saying that is this, is that I didn't listen to people telling me that I couldn't and that I shouldn't. And I wouldn't have the career today that I have, and I wouldn't be stood on this stage talking to you today if I had listened to that. Yeah? So my advice to you, if I may be so presumptuous, is this, is don't wait for the rest of the region to come on board, right, with your idea. Yeah? All of you in the room, from the government up to you creators in here, you have the power to actually start something and move forward, right, and follow your own dreams and your own hearts, yeah, to connect with each other, right, and as Grenadians, work together to build something different, right, not to sit in a box, okay, and to be defined by that box, but to live outside of the box. You do it, everyone else will follow, yeah. When I was growing up, because I did spend some time here growing up, there was a great saying, forward ever, backward never. Yeah, we should take that mantra forward, okay? Now, I'm just going to play you another video, and it's really a video of my work. That's my question to you. Yeah?
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it, quitting was never an option.
Our exhibition in Greenwich, because I wanted to sound like I was busy.
You cannot stop it. I had to switch up the flow, show you the way that it go. God is good, but his life is hard.
1000% I thought I was going mad. Because I had a bunch of motherfuckers around me that told me I was.
They say we are, that's the become
The delightfulness of equality.
tired of 9 to 5, just making enough to survive. Only living on the weekends. You really thinking that's why I'm alive? Listen, not the scenes, time to live my dreams, do the things deep inside of me. This life continues to fight me, but I don't have quitting inside of me. I will not jump in these boxes they throw at me. Talking to God and there's so much he's showing me, shaping me, growing me, taking me sowing seeds.
You suck.
I get the bad like a grocery.
Definition. Black people are what they were. We ain't gonna stop. Period.
I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it. Quitting was never an option. This passion is never exhausted. You cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it. This isn't a robbery. Hands in the sky.
The wired fence sometimes had holes in it and falling down.
Black people, I love you, I love us. Our lives matter. Black lives matter.
As the words of the song says, you cannot stop me, you cannot stop me. Yeah, I'm going to change that to you cannot stop us, you cannot stop us, right? Who's going to join me in that, okay? Let's say it together. You cannot stop us, you cannot stop us. You cannot stop us, you cannot stop us. You cannot stop us, you cannot stop us. My name's Simon Frederick. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you.
I need to put a string on the clicker and tie it onto the Prime Minister broke it yesterday. Simon wants to go to England with it. Simon, this is cheap. Where are you coming from? Thank you, Simon. You were amazing. Give him another round of applause. It was a great start to this morning, day 2 of Unleashed, don't you think? Wonderful. Alternative education, a journey to self-taught success. Yesterday I met a self-taught artist. She was ill. Is she here today? She gave me a card yesterday. This person, she had a brain, yeah? And she started to draw, and she's amazing. She's there. Yeah. So I think that session probably did some good for you. Yeah, that probably touched a button or a few buttons. We want to move right along to our first panel discussion for the day. But before our panel discussion, we want to invite a special man. He said he wasn't very good at math when he was in school. St. Lucia has honored him, so I hope he's better at math now. But I mean, he might be worth $1 billion, so I've told. Yeah? Okay, he's not saying anything, so maybe I should stop while I'm ahead. Dr. Didicus Jules is our next speaker, and he will lead a panel discussion on creative education and careers. He led He has a long, distinguished, multi-dimensional career focused on education, social transformation, and organizational re-engineering. Dr. Jules is currently the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, a regional integration grouping of 11 member states. His career experience covers national, regional, and international experiences with the following highlights: Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Examinations Council, Inter-Regional Coordinator of the International Literacy Support Service, Permanent Secretary for Education and Human Resource Development in St. Lucia, as well as Permanent Secretary for Education and Chief Education Officer in Revolutionary Grenada. In the context of Grenada, he was, along with Valerie Cornwall, a coordinator of the Center for Popular Education that led the National Literacy Campaign and subsequently converted every school in Grenada into an adult education center at night. Dr. Jules is honored in St. Lucia with the St. Lucia Cross for Distinguished Service at the national and regional level. We are honored, Dr. Jules, to have you as our first keynote speaker for today to present on creative education and careers. Welcome to Unleash Day 2. Would you like the clicker?
Mic check, please. So, before I start my presentation, I want to correct your mathematics. Because two corrections to your takeaways. One is, I would suggest, instead of talking about following the money, let's talk about discovering your potential. But if you discover your potential, the money will come. It's a Western construct. The second is, 3.5 riri's is not equal to US dollars. It is more than that. 3.5 riri's is equal to the entire economy of Barbados. The entire economy. So the question here is, can you imagine what would happen if we discover 5 or more riri's in the OECS, even in this room? Do we need foreign aid after that? So, I want to start by asking you, what do you see in this slide? Anybody? Huh? Okay, I guess I tried this trick in the wrong crowd. You all got it. The Japanese have this concept that a blank page contains everything in the universe. But from the minute you put a single line or a full stop on it, you contain it. So that's where we're coming from. And I'm sorry that I was invited to talk about education, because I could keep you here for the whole week in terms of what needs to happen in education to make it creative. But with respect to the contribution of education to the creative economy, there are 5 things that education fundamentally can deliver. One is developing creative skills. And creative skills are, as you see here, about critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration. One of the challenges we face in education in the Caribbean, and this has been a lifelong struggle for me, especially after the experience of the Grenada Revolution, we tend to compartmentalize things too much. So for every saw, we try to find a plaster. And education, unfortunately, is one of the most bastions of conservatism in Caribbean thinking. We just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. You know the kaiso, are tired of the same thing over and over. And we don't understand the need for us to think out of the box and address the situation with a different mindset. So the idea of creating a subject, every time there's a problem, you know, there's a a problem in the school system or in society, let's create a subject. We need to teach this, right? So family life education, TVET, whatever, we need to teach it. And there are fundamental core subjects that are being ignored. Mathematics, I'm a victim of that, mathematics, right? We don't address the fundamentals, and the result is huge wastage in the education system. I did a study for one Caribbean country, unnamed, one OECS member state, to show the wastage of education in the system. And it was very simple. At the secondary level, you have, let's say hypothetically, 100 students entering the school system in Form 1. By the time you get to Form 5, it's probably about 85 of them. To keep the math simple, since I'm not good at math, let's say 80 of them, because some have dropped out along the way. Of the 80 who are there, when they sit CSEC exams, the terminal CXC exam, only perhaps 70 of them get to sit it because the principal says, I'm not sending your 3 people to do to go register privately because you're not going to mess up my school results. So then, by the time whatever residual is left to sit the terminal exam, only 22% of that cohort ends secondary schooling with 5 or more subjects, which is considered the minimum for decent wage employment in the Caribbean. So if you calculate the per capita cost of education, what it costs the government every year to put a child through secondary school, and you calculate the difference between the 22% and the 100% that entered Form 1, the result is about 40 million EC dollars. So you've spent 40 million EC dollars educating a cohort of 100, many of whom have dropped out. Some have graduated, but they graduated with less than the benchmark for decent wage employment in the Caribbean. What are we doing? Now, that statistic is not an argument to reduce the cost of education. It is to make education more efficient. Now, how does that relate to what we're talking about here? Because again, at Registrar CXC, I had a long argument with a certain prime minister who was arguing, called me one day and said, we need to do a subject called critical thinking. So I was like, Prime Minister, there's no such thing as a subject called critical thinking. Because the last I checked, mathematics properly taught with problem solving is critical thinking. English language, the proper use of language is critical thinking. And by the way, as part of the transformation of CXC, the idea was to bring culture into it. It's not about dry grammar and so on. So for example, you all know about extempo. Why can't we have extempo as a learning exercise in the English syllabus? Think of the skills involved. You all know what extempo is, right? The agility of language, finding the right words within a short period of time to address, keep the rhyme, keep the vibe going, make sense. What does that do to the mind of the learner in trying to develop their critical thinking and creativity skills? So every subject properly taught is an opportunity for critical thinking, for problem solving, for communication, for collaboration. It's not just about competition. Education is not a competition, it's a process, right? Encouraging innovation, entrepreneurship, design thinking, skills to support innovation. Building an entrepreneurial mindset is critical because, again, well, to the point about following the money, it's not so much about the money, but in this world, if you can have the best ideas, you put them out there, somebody is going to monetize it. So you might as well learn how to do it yourself. And recognize the huge potential that we have in the Caribbean for innovation and for making something. And that's when you talk about culture, what we do realize, our culture is our greatest asset. We are who we are because of our culture. That is the essence of our resilience as a people. So Trinidad and Tobago went into oil production, and there were thousands of waste drums lying around. What happened? Black people in Trinidad turned that into steel pan. And guess what happened? I don't know if you're all aware of that. A few years ago, who took a patent on the steel pan? A white guy in the US. Trinidad had to negotiate to get the patents back on the steel pan. Building the entrepreneurial mindset is about initiative, risk calculation, identification of opportunity, and innovation problem solving. Promoting creativity, exploring interest. We heard so many stories here today, this week, about people just following their passion, exploring ideas, even when the whole world said to them, look at what Simon just said. Everybody said, nah, leave that alone. But no, you have to follow your North Star, find your passion. School is supposed to do that. And by the way, we lament now the state of things in school. Say there's young people are into gangs and so on. I was part of a gang at St. Mary's College. But you know the name of my gang? Sea Scouts and Cadets. No, this is a serious gang. Because the normal thing as a teenager is that you look for identification with a cohort, you look to be part of something. And if we do not provide positive forms of association, young people will find negative forms of association to assert their identity, to show their manhood, and all of that. So it's our failures. So that is why, too, the importance of this is not just about building a cultural industry, it is incorporating culture in education and using education as a way of also building an industry from which people can find a living, make a decent living, and so on, out of their creativity. And the creative industry skills also need to be promoted. Music, film, fashion, art, and digital media. Now, I created this construct to look at, if we want to be very practical about how we approach this thing, I think there are 4 pillars really in bringing education in line to create that cultural economy. By the way, this slide deck has been given to Orlando and his team, so it can be circulated to whoever wants a copy. So you start by looking at offering training and professional development, and that involves 2 core things. Teacher professional development, because teachers have to be prepared to undertake this task in education. As I said, every subject, remember, is an opportunity for creativity. So it means we have to reinvent how we teach and how we learn, right? Now, let's be clear. It doesn't mean that the Ministry of Education, and I see the Honorable Minister is here, so don't put him under pressure to hire 50... No, listen carefully to me before you hear. Because I'm saying to him, don't rush and say that, don't feel that you're under pressure now to hire 50 artists to work in schools in Grenada. Right? You have to take the existing cohort of teachers and repurpose them in their training, but also there are the opportunities for the arts community, the creative community, to come into the schools to do things. Let me tell you a story again. Sometimes we forget, we have historical amnesia. During the revolution in Grenada, we discovered, and you heard my biography, we discovered that the Teachers' College was making no sense. Because when you looked at the cohort of teachers that was graduating every year, and you looked at the attrition of teachers, Grenada's rate of the percentage of qualified teachers in the primary system was so low. When we calculated graduation rates, dropouts, people leaving the system, it would have taken Grenada 50 years, 50 years, to reach a point where all of your cohort of primary school teachers were qualified teachers. Can a country go forward on that basis? We tried to get the University of the West Indies to redesign the model. They wanted to keep to what was there. That's why I said educators are among the most conservative people out. What did the government do? They scrapped the teaching college model and created something called the National In-Service Teacher Education Program, NISTEP. Every unqualified teacher in every parish for different periods of time, like 2 weeks at a time, spread over the term, would have to go to parish centers to be trained in pedagogy and brought up to speed. And the emphasis of that program was on the practical dimensions of teaching. There were no exams. The exams were what you did in the classroom is where your assessment. So this notion of teaching practice, where you spend 2 weeks doing the most glossy presentation of how you're going to teach your class, and they come and assess that, and you get a grade A, and then you go back and do nothing in the classroom anywhere remotely connected to that was done. But the challenge there, and I'm giving this story for several reasons, not just to illustrate the immediate point, but for you to see what is necessary is an ecosystemic approach to how we solve our problems. By solving this problem of teacher training, by having all untrained teachers as part of a program, a couple thousand teachers in training, meant that suddenly, what do we do with the schools? Because when the teachers are out, do we close the schools? Parents would cease the revolution if that were to happen. So what was the answer? Created something called the Community School Day program, which invited members of the community to come into the schools and teach anything that you were capable of teaching. So a cleaner in Montjalou Primary School was able to come and teach handicraft or teach whatever you could teach. Some people who could still speak the French Creole in Grenada taught it. Where you couldn't get people, it was an opportunity for students to go on field trips, to do different things, sporting activities, community visits, tours of the island, etc. What happened as a result? The largest attendance at school in primary school in Grenada was during the CSDP days, because suddenly learning was fun. It was everything, right? And it brought the community and the school in a different nexus of relationship. We had to transform PTAs into community school councils because the community became part of the life of the school. So I'm saying all of this to say that when we talk about offering training and professional development, it's more than just a cost thing. It is a transformation thing, right? And the next one is reconfiguring the curriculum, which is related. The curriculum has to become more interdisciplinary. The days of a curriculum as fixed boxes, subjects as discrete boxes of knowledge no longer exist. And that translates also, we heard the story of the young man who presented yesterday, who is a poet, but who was trained in architecture. And my wife actually was wanting to be an architect. She's now a business strategist, but when I was telling her the story of yesterday, she was saying, but he's right. Architecture is nothing but poetry in concrete. And that is what he said to us yesterday. And look at where he's gone. The Royal Society of Architects have recognized him. So that speaks to the multidisciplinarity. At CXC, we're looking at a subject called clothing and textiles. Every year, only 0.01% of the cohort was doing that subject. Made no sense. Is it even worth offering that subject? Suggested, let's change the name from clothing and textiles to fashion and design. If we did nothing else, that would boost the registration. Big opposition from the panel. Next idea, school-based assessment was taking a piece of cloth and demonstrating stitches. What's the sense of that? Let them design a piece of clothing from scratch and produce it. That is your SBA. Show your fashion. We spoke to the Caribbean Association of Designers to say, can you be part of the panel to assess these new SBAs and take the top 10 designs produced by students in that exam and put it on your catwalk when you have fashion shows in New York, London, and anywhere in the Caribbean, as you did every other year. You know what that means? Your son or daughter want to be an engineer or medical doctor, but their fashion and design piece ends up on the catwalk. They can still be an engineer or doctor or whatever they want to be, but they can also be a successful fashion designer. And the good thing is they don't even need to have a sewing machine to become that fashion, far less to seek millions of dollars to set up a factory for producing design. That's another fallacy that we have, that we need to do the production ourselves. They do the designs, they copyright it, they have the intellectual property. You go to a factory in China, here's 1 million, produce 1 million of this for me. You have a deal with J.C. Penney or whoever to buy your fashions. All you do is design, and you make millions of dollars from your design. That's where you follow the money, Miss MC, right? So the reconfiguration of the curriculum is in that direction. I'm giving these stories to practicalize what I'm saying to you. This is not an impossible task, colleagues. It is not impossible, it is doable. And in the Caribbean, we have this fallacy that money is the problem. Money is not the problem. Our problem in the Caribbean is imagination. Because if you really want to achieve what you want to achieve, and many of the stories we heard here this week prove this, you can do it because you will find a way to make it happen. Create partnerships with industry. Some of what I said speak to that. So internships, mentorships, sponsorships, but in the education system, just as what we did with CSDP, the Community School Day program, it doesn't need a revolution to do that. The school has to be brought in a different relationship with industry, whether it is creative industry, manufacturing, agriculture, whatever, so that learning, we provide the students with an opportunity to practicalize their learning. And that way, the whole learning process is enriched. And then obviously one has to provide tools, resources, and the technology. So in essence, the role that the education system will play has to do with supporting entrepreneurship, encouraging collaboration and interdisciplinary learning, and also providing the incubation for prototyping and experimentation. In reconfiguring the curriculum, we already have opportunities there. So there is already, I see, a National Schools Orchestra, at least in 2022, there was a string section for that in Grenada. And you have all of these cultural festivals. So all of these things in art, music, design, media, entrepreneurship need to be incorporated into the curriculum. And they can do this easily, not by overpacking the teaching timetable of the school, but by having school clubs and events. So music and dance and performance groups, affirming identity, creative expression, and by the way, being part of a creative and performing arts group, as I said, just with the example of the extempo thing, is not, you don't put these things in separate compartments. When you're part of a creative group and you're expressing yourself culturally, you're also learning to express yourself as a person, to become as a person, to develop your self-confidence, your public speaking. So we have to see the multidimensionality in all of these things. That's our problem, with too many things set in compartmentalized boxes. So creative expression, collaboration, the interdisciplinarity. Doing creative stuff is not just culture, it's also history and geography. Right? Understanding your history and geography and researching those things. Participation in national cultural festivals, the Chocolate Festival. If you participate in the Chocolate Festival, are there opportunities for students in schools who are doing food and nutrition to take basic chocolate and design new dishes with that? New forms of culinary expression, and things that can even then be monetized and become new products that can come out of the Grenada agricultural, agroeconomic landscape. So history and tradition, again, you part of, say, the carriacou, maroon and string band, documentation of that. If you're doing music and you're in a cultural group looking at the maroon traditions in carriacou, can you notate that music? Can you record it? Can you look at variations of that, modernize it, incorporate it, just as we have bouillon and other new forms of expression, Afrobeat? How can we use these traditional expressions to find new ways of expressing ourselves? And there's a whole catalog of subjects that already exist within the Caribbean Examinations Council. And if we are serious, we need to put pressure for these subjects to be fundamentally re-examined in the context of what I'm saying. We had started that process, but it needs to continue. We do not need to create new examinations and new forms. We simply need to look at what we have and modify, modernize, give that multidimensionality to those subjects and the interconnection between those subjects. At CSEC, we have all of these, Caribbean history, geography, etc. At CAPE, a whole lot of new generation subjects. There's animation and game design. I do a lot of mentoring of young people. And in fact, when I get back to St. Lucia next week, I have to talk to a brother and sister whose parents are professionals, but they're deeply worried about them because they say all the boy does is play computer games. The only thing that they find really strange is that he has a source of income. He's being paid to play computer games. So I'm like, well, I'll talk to him because what I'm going to work with him to do is to design a plan where he can go to his parents within a month and say, I'm going to retire both of you because here's my income from playing games. No, this is a serious thing. Now, where does that connect with me as Director General of the OECS? When we talk about entrepreneurship and so on, somebody mentioned YouTube earlier, monetizing your work on YouTube. None of the OECS countries, the last we checked, was actually recognized by YouTube and these media as a geography where you could monetize your blogs or the stuff that you put up there. And we are now negotiating with them on how we can be incorporated into that virtual economy. Coursera, we've been having a discussion with them because I don't know if you're all aware that in the OECS there's something called the PPS, which was originally the Pool Pharmaceutical Procurement Service. It's been in existence for 40 years. We have done a couple billion EC dollars worth of business procuring medicines, drugs, and medical supplies for the governments of the OECS. Because when the countries put together, you get the best possible prices, 40% savings off the commercial price. We've now transitioned that from PPS as pharmaceutical procurement to pool procurement services. So anything a government needs to acquire, our governments need, if we can pool what we need across the OECS, we will get those savings for them. So the idea was with training, Coursera is well known, it needs no explanation to you all. We said, well, why don't we do not have the resources for every community college in the OECS to offer the range of courses that Coursera offers. We don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the money, but what about the imagination? Why not approach Coursera to set up, which they've already agreed to do, an OECS Career Academy? And then we discovered from those discussions with them that individual member states are already doing some of that. Grenada has, as of 2 weeks ago, 9,915 persons doing courses on Coursera. So, if we take that into, and you can see for the other countries, Virgin Islands, the users, let's see, St. Lucia has 36% of the users, Grenada has 18%, Antigua has 10, St. Vincent 7, Dominica 7, Martinique 7, Guadeloupe 7, Virgin Islands 3% of the users in the OECS. The idea there is that all of this can, if we take a license, and the way Coursera works, and that's what people don't understand, when you go by yourself, keep talking about regionalizing these initiatives. If I go and take a license as an individual on Coursera, it's personal to Didicus Jules. So I do whatever course is there, I can choose from their whole catalog, they allow for that, that's it. Salian wants to do courses. There's a particular license in Coursera I can buy that is a license. So I can take that license and do 10 courses. When I'm done, that license is used by Salian to do 15 courses. And then it passes to the next person, you do courses, because you do it for the lifetime of the license. You get it? So that is the approach that we are taking. So think then, the number of licenses we need so that everyone in this room can do something in Coursera related to your creative endeavor. And some of these provide certifications that are recognized. Let me just stick a pin, because Lincoln here, for the last, 5 years, Lincoln, we had a discussion about treating the Grenada NTA as the lead NTA for the OECS to do the certification and accreditation issues. Now, why do we do that? It makes no sense for OECS to go and set up a regional NTA when you have national NTAs. So anywhere in the OECS where you have an institution that is already has the competencies, the drive, and the initiatives to succeed in its area of work, let's make that the focal point for the entire OECS. And we get the other countries to contribute to its work. So it's less costly to us, and it makes life much easier to achieve what we want to achieve. So we are coming with that. But the OECS Career Academy in Coursera does not stand alone, because that fits again to the idea of rationalizing what we're doing into what we call a digital learning system, where the entire education system, professionals, everyone can be in that space. Think of it as a portal that will hold all of these initiatives so that we operate within an ecosystem where things are connected to other things, rather than separate initiatives all over the place and they don't connect. So there are 270 courses that will be going into the OECS Coursera Academy. And you can see some of them there. In advanced course in web and app development, there are 3 courses. Be business ready, 9 courses. Become a data analyst with Google, 8. Believe in yourself and build confidence, 6. Bridge to post-secondary higher education, 7. Career discovery, 13. Conversant with computers, 4. I mean, you can read for yourselves and see, but it spans a wide range of opportunity that I'm sure every one of you here, just from this, can recognize a course that will be useful to you. And this is just a sample of some of the courses. And we're looking at those courses that will be of particular benefit to young people. You look at those on the right-hand side, the skills courses, exploring careers in financial literacy, in launching a digital business online, etc. And again, to ensure that this thing is not a standalone thing, talking to the central bank, because somebody mentioned the difficulty of doing transactions online. We have Dcash. How many people here, by show of hands, have heard of Dcash? Okay. Well, how many people are using Dcash? And we've been talking to the central bank about us launching a serious thrust, focusing essentially on young people, because the secret is, if you get young people to start to use Dcash, their parents will start to use Dcash, because when they see the youths handling stuff, cashless transactions, they will want to know how it works. And it doesn't have to do with your level of educational literacy. I was in Kenya, and I visited the market, and illiterate persons are using the M-Pesa system to do their cashless transactions. I stood in a store for an hour by the cashier watching the M-Pesa transactions happen. Huge economy in a digital space, and I guess it's a good thing. Nobody can thief your money, except if it's a hacker, though. But they can't hold you up and take your money because it's digital. So the jobs of the future are going to require creativity. And I'm sure you all will have heard the buzz about AI, artificial intelligence. There are a lot of jobs that are going to be made redundant. Some of them are already redundant, but they've not discovered that they are in fact redundant. So you need to get with the program. And again, all what we're talking about here fits into culture. Don't separate the digital realm from the cultural realm. You know, not whether it's what you call it, shortney, and all of these things. These are physical, cultural expressions. But we have to find something for them in the digital space, because that is where the future is. So think, for example, and I've had that discussion with some colleagues, tourism in Grenada. You have a unique opportunity here. This is the only English-speaking country in the 20th century that had a revolution. Whether you think it good or bad, it's the historical reality. There are a lot of opportunities in here to, even in other countries. So you go to Brimstone Hill in St. Kitts, I've suggested that to them. And this is one of the most well-preserved colonial forts from the 18th century. This is a huge opportunity for the National Trust to have weddings, moonlight dinners, have days when you have 6 tourist cruise ships in the harbor. People can come up to the fort and see people in period costumes doing the daily activity, simulating a day in the life of the fort. And in the restaurant of the fort, you cook the recipes that were cooked in 1825. And people have an opportunity to sample that. They do that in Barbados, by the way, in George Washington House. They serve the menus that George Washington used to eat when he lived in that house. But more than that, you can also do that in the digital realm. So if I go to Pigeon Island in St. Lucia, which is another island with all of these fortifications, put on some goggles. As I look around, I should see life in the time of the battles of Admiral Rodney all around me. I can see battles being fought. I can see, cannons being loaded. I can hear the sounds. At immersion in that reality. Now, all of this connects to you because you as creatives, whether you're an artist, you're a clothing designer, whatever, you need to be able to transfer these skills into the metaverse, into that artificial reality, so that your designs, your clothing, your architecture, all of that can be transferred in here. And all of these jobs for the future require those digital skills, but they are also integral to the culture of the future. So let us not treat our culture as something of the past that we are trying to keep alive, but as our pathway to a future that nobody else can create. Thank you.
Dr. Jules, I would like to ask you to join me on stage.
Why? I'm very careful with you,
You're blowing up the live today, you.
Okay.
You're blowing up the live today. Give him another round of applause. Dr. Jules will be joined by 2 other panelists this morning, and we're going to continue our discussion on creative education and careers. I'd like to invite on stage, joining Dr. Jules, Ms. Shola K. Roberts. And Shola K. Roberts is an international performing professional dancer, dance educator, choreographer, and fitness instructor based in Brooklyn, New York. In 2019, Shola was selected as one of the 8 candidates to pursue her doctoral degree in dance education at Columbia University. Shola attended Howard University and earned her BFA in Dance and Caribbean Studies. She was part of the last graduating class that studied under the tutelage of the late Dr. Cheryl Berryman Johnson. It was during her tenure the significance of being rooted in cultural traditions and community was reinforced and played a major role in her teaching practices. Shola started Dance Grenada Incorporated, and this year we're moving into year number 4. Year number 4. Her title now is Assistant Professor of Dance at Arizona State University, and she, again, is the founder of Dance Grenada Incorporated. Thank you for being with us today. Our next panelist, he is an experienced Chief Education Officer with a demonstrated history of working in the education management industry, skilled in audio engineering. Bright people we have on this panel today. Curriculum development, public speaking. We have bright people every day, eh? Just want to stick that in there, right? So he is skilled in audio engineering, curriculum development, public speaking. He's teacher trained and he's trained in leadership. He's a strong business development professional with a master's degree focused in education counseling from Andrews University, Michigan, United States of America. Let's welcome the Chief Education Officer of the National Training Agency, Mr. Lincoln Morgan. And to facilitate this morning's panel discussion on creative education and careers, I want to welcome theater practitioner Dr. Christopher Williams. He's a multi-talented individual with diverse range, and he's an expert in his range is diverse in the performing arts, and he holds a doctorate in let me get this right, he holds a doctorate in administration and management with special emphasis on process drama therapy. Let's welcome Dr. Christopher Williams. He will be moderating the session. And I would like to recognize in our presence, and today we're talking about education, I'd like to recognize in our presence our Minister of Education, Youth, Sports, and Culture. Let's give him a round of applause. Senator the Honorable David Andrew is here with us. This is a very important discussion on education, and we want to thank you for being here. And of course, the Permanent Secretary within the same ministry, Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, and Culture, Mr. Elvis Moraine. Welcome. We're happy to have you with us. And those notebooks, those notepads that we gave you yesterday, they're too small, so I'd like to invite you to bring a big notebook. Bryden and Miners is down the road. So, and one more thing about cell phone usage. I don't think I need to say much, just that all they big and all they have sense, right? The principal of TAMC. Oh, this is your second day here. Thank you, sir, for joining us. You have a notebook, sir? Oh, thank you. All right. Enjoy the session, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello? And you know, that's how we do it in the creative industry. Hello? Hello? Anybody there? Yes. Shh. Can you hear me? Oh, it's good. It's good to be here. Oh, let's not put on a show right now, but I am so glad to be here, you know, looking at the value of the arts, and we are among the artists, creators, and educators. You see, because education is always the foundation, right? But I want to say creative arts is the foundation, so as we start this process, having, grown through the process of education and the arts, I want to take it straight to the first speaker, Dr. Jules, to give him some fuel so that he can light some fire for us. All right, Dr. Jules, you just said that nothing functions without the creative arts. Can you amplify that for us in the education system?
Well, I just simply have to refer you to something I saw here. Everything that is real was imagined first. I think that sums it up. So it's really about the exercise of our imagination. And one of the things I often remind people, we look at problems in the wrong way. We think of a problem as a problem. If we think of problems as opportunities, you take a problem, you turn it upside down, inside out. The solution you find is something that would take you further than you could ever have dreamed of going had that problem not occurred in the first place. But if you just throw up your hands, it's a problem, then you remain with the problem. If you really analyze the problem, not just as a plaster on a sore, but as something that, you know, really trying to get, what is the opportunity hidden in that problem? It takes you to a different level.
Okay, great, thank you. And I would jump straight across to Dr. Roberts.
Not yet.
Not yet.
She's still writing.
She's right there. Okay. Because I want to go to Brother Morgan after to solidify this. Okay. In the school system, you would hear persons say, even parents, teachers say, don't waste your time with that. What dance could give you? Mm-hmm. What the arts could give you? What do you? Something wrong with you? Can you speak to the audience or everyone who's listening on the value that you would have found and you see existing?
Yeah. So I was one of those young vessels that had people tell me that. Why are you studying that far? You can't go anywhere with that. But I did have a mother who believed in nourishing me, and she saw the potential. She saw what it did to my spirit. And we saw that even with COVID, right? When we were away from each other, what was the first thing we resorted to and we cling to? Wasn't it not the dance? Wasn't it not the music? Because it's something that speaks to us as a people, right? And so as I continue to teach in these different spaces, and I want us to be reminded of what the arts, what dance does to us as a human vessel. It pours into us. And if we can continue to see that and speak to that and show how we are developing as holistic individuals, then the world is ours. So that's what I have to say to that.
Okay, I'm coming back at you because we have some food to give again.
Okay.
But Brother Morgan, I know you in the industry, and I've seen you play music. I've played along with you, growing up watching you. And now you've transformed, you've merged music and the arts and education. And now we see that certification is critical. But there are students now who are saying, well, I don't really want that, I just want to, as I heard earlier on, show me where the money is, or even in Form 2, they say, well, I'm getting money for that. Can you speak to the value of certification while you're tying that creative process?
Okay, at the Grenada National Training Agency where I work, we are a certifying body. We certify persons with Caribbean vocational qualifications and national vocational qualifications. These qualifications allow people to work across CARICOM countries. We promote not just skills versus academics, but we promote the integration of skills and academics. I have a daughter who is currently doing a master's degree in marketing with the University of the West Indies. And there's a program that is coming up with, I think, Adelph, a company out of South Africa, where they'll be providing opportunities for Grenadians on their UNESCO project to be able to do courses in digital marketing. And she said to me, Daddy, I want to do the digital marketing course. She says the marketing she's doing is marketing management. It's giving her all the theoretical perspectives and all of that. But she sees herself as being much more marketable if she does the course in digital marketing. I was in a workshop in Jamaica a few years ago, and the head of the engineering program in Mona, he did a presentation in which he says his engineers, he's requiring them or encouraging them, to, in addition to getting their engineering degree, to get a CVQ in a specific engineering area. So you're an engineer, you understand all the theoretical and scientific underpinnings of engineering and so on, but the CVQ says that in addition to having all that scientific and academic knowledge, you have the ability to work in a specific engineering occupation. So we're pushing skills as well as academics. We see them as integrated and not as separate things, and that they're both necessary. The Ministry of Education in Grenada just launched its what's it called? Roadmap for TVET. And in that roadmap, what they're promoting is that persons will do their academics in the secondary schools, but they will also have the opportunity to become certified in a skill by the time they leave secondary school. So that persons don't just have the options for doing academics, but we present the skills. And the skills we present not as something for the slow learners. We embrace the concept of people being smart and skilled. We want our smart students to also get into skills training. We want people to start seeing that you can have your degree, but if you have specific skill certification along with that degree, it makes you much more marketable. And that's what we're trying to push at the national community.
Thank you. Okay, so Dr. Jules, the modern students, notice I'm not comparing with old and young, but today's students say, as you mentioned, put me in the classroom, give me a phone, give me a gadget, and let me game my life away. Let me play. How do you, what would you say in terms of e-sports, e-games, e-courses in the classroom and tying in the creators to help the teachers who are not so technologically inclined?
Well, I think there's huge opportunity in there. As I said earlier, the role of creatives in the classroom has to be redefined. All of the persons here can play an integral role in the education system as it now exists. And notwithstanding what I presented in terms of the whole digital world and how that converges with the world of culture now, remember too that this is not just a technological thing. I keep reminding people, transformation in education really has 3 dimensions. There's no tech, low tech, and high tech. So to give a concrete example, during COVID, we were very active, the education unit of the OECS, looking at best practices and examples that we could spread across the OECS. Everybody was looking at, okay, learning online, and we tried hard to get that right. We had a phone actually a school in a classroom, a school in a phone, cell phone that was developed, particularly to help those students displaced in St. Vincent with the volcano. But there were also no-tech initiatives that were very successful. So for example, a teacher in one of the Grenadines would ride around the island on his bicycle, dropping off packages of lessons that he had prepared for his students, right? And so the physical class assignments were being distributed by bicycle across the small island, one of the Grenadines. And the students did the work, and it was collected by the teacher and corrected. In one of the urban areas in Jamaica, a teacher used a wall in the community, painted it black, and would write lessons out there in the community space. And students would come, whatever distance they stand away from the board, copy the lessons, do it at home. So there is room for everything in terms of technology, but we should not also underplay the importance of human interaction in the learning process.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Great. I wanted to tie this in, so before I come back to you, I want to bring it to both of you and Mr. Morgan. The use of instructional design. Going into the deeper depths of it. Instructional design or animation design. Because as you say, we can't run away from it. We have the technology and the AI here. But how do you see that playing a role, positive or negative, in helping the education system to go forward? In the sense of no more boring classroom, let us gamify everything.
Well, let me say that I've often reduced the issue of education transformation to a simple principle. Make learning fun. I think if we do that, all of our problems of student motivation, the whole paradigm is going to change, right? And so it is possible to achieve that. However, when you talk about gamification and all of that, you can have some very skilled game designers and user interface designers and so on in the room here today. But ultimately, they should recognize it's not just your skills in that, your technical skills in that area that matter. You need to also engage the audiences that you're going to serve with that technology. So getting students themselves involved to see what are the things that appeal to them. And that's where a lot of game designers, for example, do these prototyping things, and they have people try out the games, and based on the user experience, they improve on them. So we have to be open in our various disciplines to innovation, to improving, but receiving feedback from the audiences or the people that we interact with so that we can have a meaningful impact in the sector that we try to impact.
Thank you. Brother Morgan, you want to speak on anything on that, the instructional design process in terms of the certification? Do I have to always sit down and write with a pen and a paper?
Well, COVID-19 has taught us that we have to move away to a certain extent from the old modalities of delivering instruction. We were forced during COVID to move to digitized forms of instruction. And I don't think we're going to ever go back totally to where we were before COVID. In terms of the National Training Agency where I work, we believe in competency-based education and training. And so the emphasis in our delivery is on the learner building the capacity to be able to demonstrate the skills that are required for performing actual work in an actual work situation. For us, any method that transfers that learning to the learner, transfer those skills to the learner, is adequate for us. But we are very much aware now that there are tremendous opportunities that are being presented with the digitization that is now taking place. And we have to embrace them if we are to move forward and provide maximum opportunities for our learners.
Thank you. And let's move to Ms. Roberts. You know, play is important. But now we don't play. Oh, great. So when you enter the classroom, from kindergarten up, maybe kindergarten you have some form of play. Now how do you tie in play and dance and education, the arts education, when you have to sit behind a table, a desk, and a chair? How do you see that transformation?
I want to address Bell Hooks. She was one of the authors that I addressed in some research that I'm doing, and one of her topics was when she learned, it was because her teacher was able to connect to her. Her teacher was able to bring in her cultural practices into the space. And I'm a firm believer in this decolonizing how we approach education. I don't have to sit behind a desk. There can be ways I can assess your understanding through movement. And so bringing that into the space, I think, is key. I think even as an ELA teachers, what are ways that we can incorporate movement or play or engaging with our learners beyond this simple notion of writing? And then in turn, that leads to the learner's creativity, right? How can we find different ways for us to assess their knowledge base? Maybe they might want to create a film. Maybe they might want to engage the community. And so I find that if we go beyond our way of assessment, then we can bring those notions into the classroom, and then that can create more opportunities for our learners to grow.
Thank you. So as we break into the creative arts education, all right, looking at the value of the creative arts, but not many persons may see the value until it's called, or for an entertainment session, or some delegates coming in, you call the artist.
Yep.
Or some function, you want some live band music, or you want to give somebody a gift, you call for a piece of art. How do we transform this or transition this now to the lowest level? Because I don't want to stay here longer, but I want to hear from each person here on the panel. How do we get that mindset really to change when we know the barriers that exist within the policies of society? Go right ahead.
I think it boils down to getting the people who's on the floor and in the spaces with those learners into those meetings and in those tables. And that's where it starts. The individuals that are doing the work on the ground, how do we bring them into the space so they can then advocate for themselves in terms of, well, we're just not here just to do a shortney dance. I have to learn the skill. I have to put those costumes together, right? And so that takes time. And so how do we bring that into the space so then others can understand the level and the value of our work?
I'm a self-taught musician. I understood your journey this morning. I really appreciate it. And basically, growing up as a musician, we played mainly for fun. We did not even think that we could earn a living with our creative talents. However, looking back, we see that there could have been opportunities for us to go much further, to achieve much more in terms of our creative abilities. If our society had provided a different kind of support for us when we were kids growing up and when we were young persons trying to express those creative abilities that we had. And so I think that we have a responsibility to the next generation to give them better opportunities to be able to use their creative abilities and potential to be able to earn a living. There's a lot that we need to do in terms of achieving this. For one thing, we need to help young people to find their creative abilities, to discover it, provide more opportunities in the school system for students to be able to discover those abilities. And then once discovered, we now need to find ways of nurturing and developing those abilities, both in terms of their ability to have creative expressions, but also in terms of our ability to take that and monetize it. Because a lot of us as musicians and creatives, when we were younger growing up, a lot of us, we had ability, but we didn't get the opportunities to develop it to the max and to use it as a means of earning a decent living. I think that we need to, and the Ministry of Education, again, is on a pathway that I think is a good path with regards to the TVET roadmap. I think at the secondary level, we need to provide opportunities for young people, not just to do a bunch of academic subjects. We have kids coming out of school with 14 and 15 CSEC subjects. I think we need to encourage young people to start getting into some of the creative type training programs within the secondary schools. And then I think we need to create opportunities beyond the secondary level. I would love to see, before I die, that we have some kind of training institution that caters to the development of creatives. Yeah. Right? Maybe a creative arts institute. It could be a standalone institution, or it could be within another institution, but an institute that functions, is well-funded, curriculum, and so on. I also think that it would be a really important thing for us to, in Grenada, build a theater that becomes the home for the creative arts. I mean, if you speak to people like Urias Peters and Christy Riggs and so, we don't have spaces that were designed specifically for that kind of function. And so they make do with the trade center and places like that. But I think it's time that we build a home for the creative arts. Some years ago, when I was at the community college, as the principal of the college, we were developing a facilities master plan for the institution funded by CDB. And one of the things we had in that master plan was a creative arts center with a theater that would have then become the home for the creative arts. And we've been talking these things for a while, but I think it's time for us to now make them into reality.
Okay, but on that note, thank you. Dr. Jules, you okay with that?
Well, I just wanted to add that I'm in full agreement with what has been said before, but the part, aside from the infrastructure and all of that, there's a policy dimension to that needs to be addressed. So it will require the Ministry of Education to have a very clear policy on the incorporation of the creative arts in education. And not no, but hear me carefully, aside from all the reasons given about the value of the creative arts and so on, there's a very core educational reason why it needs to be incorporated, and that has to do with the cultivation of character. And my suggestion would be that we start, especially at the earliest level of the education system, from kindergarten, because as a permanent secretary, both in Grenada and in St. Lucia, I often visited schools, and certainly in the case of St. Lucia, I was there for about 8 years and had the opportunity of tracking some students. So I'd visit an infant school or kindergarten school. When you step into the school, the kids rush to you. They're very talkative. They engage you. They ask you questions. They touch you. You see these same students 3-4 years later on when they reach infant school or primary school, and you're talking to them, they don't look you in the eye. Their heads are down. You have to be juking them to get them to speak. They are completely different characters because they've lost the confidence to express themselves, to be spontaneous and so on, right? So the creative arts has a very essential function in helping students to become more expressive. And even things like dance, right? One of the things that never materialized was during the revolution was the idea of having ballet taught in schools. Now, I know to some people that may sound like it's an European import, but there was a very solid reason for that. In the Caribbean, I see it all the time. We have school functions and students do folk dances and things. Our notion of a cultural event is the more we can whine, the better it is, right? And we lose the sophistication of the form. We lose the sophistication of the form. Now, ballet, although it is a European construct, it really teaches a discipline of the body, right?
So you don't believe our folk forms teaches us the discipline of the body?
It does. No, it does, but hear what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm thinking of ballet not as a cultural form, but as a form of body training, right?
The two can go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I've trained in both European dance forms and traditional folk dance forms, and I find that my agility, my strength, my flexibility all comes from my African diaspora.
Okay.
So I agree with you holistically. I think we need to diversify our arts programming and bring dance into the space and have plethora of dance styles so our learners can have the option and develop.
Yeah, well, I'm in agreement with that, right? Yeah, but essentially what I'm saying is that dance is also an important dimension.
Absolutely.
But we need to also break the construct that we have that, we don't treat our indigenous dance forms as a form of discipline of the body. That's the essence of it.
I agree with you on that
one. Thank you very much. And on that note, the panelists have just told us that we need to create the enabling environment for the creative arts education in Grenada and throughout the Caribbean. Give them a round of applause again. Thank you.
Kay Roberts, let's give a hand. Brother Lincoln Morgan, extraordinaire. And the Lucian, Dr. Didicus. Sorry, we won't break out in and then re-segment. That's another discussion. Thank you, and thank you to our moderator, Dr. Christopher Williams. I want to invite our Minister of Education to make some brief remarks, and then I'm going to introduce our next speaker for this morning.
Hey.
Oh, you did? No, that's good.
Where are your family? Beaton.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Master of Ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests all, it gives me real pleasure to be able to join you here today. I wasn't able to be with you yesterday, but I followed. And certainly it gives me pleasure to join you today for this auspicious occasion where we begin to tap into reserves that I think has not been formally tapped into. But this administration is prepared to tap into the creative juices of our people and to unleash the potential that exists. Now, I sat and I listened, and in many ways it reminded me of my own classroom experience. Among other things, I taught French as a secondary school teacher for several years. And I'd go to the classroom, I mean, and Dr. Williams would be aware of that. I think we did some of that together. He taught French too. And we'd go with guitars. So I'm not one of those celebrated creatives, but I do play some of the instruments. And I'd go with the guitar, and we'd start with a song. We do the words, we do the dance moves, and then we decode sentences, make the grammatical connections, and all of these things. And I'm sitting there and I'm remembering, and several years after, students would say to me, "Sir, I really liked French, you know. I really liked French. You know, when you left, I just dropped, and I just couldn't take the French on anymore." And it reminded me, listening to all of the discussions today, how important the creative arts and that approach, even for regular professionals in the teaching profession, if we use that, how much more effective we can be as educators. And so I want to thank all of you who contributed, who participated in those discussions, creating the kind of awareness that we need as we change a paradigm in Grenada's history, creating and setting up the Office of the Creative Affairs and ensuring that we put more of our people onto this pathway to make use of all of the, and not accidentally, not serendipitously. We don't want to just, we are happy to have the Mr. Killers, and we are happy to have the Dashes, and we are happy to have all of these creatives, all of the dance professionals, but we want to be deliberate and intentional about their creation within the education system. So we want to thank you for your contribution today. And I want to assure you that at the Ministry of Education, we are committed to doing what we need to do. We know that there's a lot more to be done. Currently, we only have a few persons professionally trained in this area. Dr. Williams is one of them. And so, I'm happy to announce, somebody mentioned earlier about scholarships. And I'm happy to announce on behalf of the Minister with responsibility for the creative economy that in conjunction with Coursera, an additional 500 scholarships have been reserved for professionals in the creative space. And so, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday when the Prime Minister spoke, he used a quote that said something to that effect, that there is nothing greater than an idea whose time has come. And I say to you, I want to echo his sentiments and say that the time has come for the focus on the creative arts that we need. The time has come for the home for the Creative Arts Center. And so I want to say to you as well, with the permission of the Minister with responsibility for the creative economy, that that too is in the plan and in the making. So we are in that time, and I'm happy and delighted to be a part of the grouping, part of this administration that's serving at the helm, that's promoting, that's pushing, that's energizing this movement of which we are all a part. I thank you very much and look forward to continued collaboration in this creative sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Those words, I think, will resonate with all of us, all creatives, the theater goers, the filmmakers, all of us. So thank you for your words and thank you for your remarks. And we look forward to working with the Ministry of Education to promote more arts education within our schools. Thank you. Our next speaker goes by the name Joel Numbakam. I got it. Did I get it? Joel N. is a strategic marketing expert known for his innovative approach to personal brand building and corporate marketing. With over 7 years of experience in the marketing and communication industry, Joel has made a significant impact in bridging the gap between personal branding and corporate marketing, helping individuals and companies reach their full potential within the market. Joel's innovative ideas and creative flair have made him a standout figure in the marketing world. He inspires others to live their best lives, make a positive impact in their communities, and reach their fullest potential. Let's welcome Joel N.
You almost got it, you know? You almost got it. Hello, Grenada. Hello. Firstly, I don't know how I'm going to come back here and not be greeted by some very exorbitant welcome at the airport. So whoever organized, the next time I visit, I need like VIP treatment. I want to go in the government lounge, all of that. But I had such an amazing welcome. I'm very happy to be here. I've always wanted to visit. And I'm super happy that this is literally the first time that I'm coming to present not only about something that I care about, but to be presenting to creatives, which I'm very passionate about. Like, big up on yourself all day, every day. And for my presentation on topic, firstly, a couple speakers, you're going to see yourself on the screen. I'm very sorry. So as I go with the presentation, just brace yourself. I hate using stock images. So I'm like, why not use the same people that are here? Do some stalking on Instagram, screenshot, and there you are on the cover image, and you're going to see yourself throughout it. But a big part of the creative journey is really understanding how you can build brand you. There's so many other things that comes as a part of it, but in building and understanding the fundamentals of who you are as an individual, what you're about, what you represent, that's the first tenet to understand before you even start thinking about how you can perfect the craft, how you can make money, and how you can transition that into better things. Now, a little bit of information about me as an individual. I am a writer for a couple publications that have seen millions of views. That would have been Adweek, Social Media Examiner. And I wouldn't have gotten there if I didn't know who I was. So I kept on getting a lot of information from Adweek about how marketers can upskill themselves. And I'm like, why is always Americans writing? Why am I always seeing content coming from there? Where are the Caribbean people? And I decided to reach out to them, did a pitch, tell them who I am, what the value I bring, and eventually that allowed me to start writing, being the first Caribbean writer for Adweek, Social Media Examiner, being the first Caribbean person to present at one of the international conferences. And all of this is really because I kind of believed in myself, and we're a big deal, so, we're a big deal, so we need to celebrate and embrace that. I also want to use the pleasure and opportunity here as well to tell you about how important it is to step out in your own. This will see me venturing into my own journey of entrepreneurship, where I'm launching my own social impact company. This is the first time I'm ever talking about it publicly. That will be called Amplify Studios. And I mention this because for me, marketing, creativity comes back to the heart and soul of people. And my agency will be pretty much looking at how we can get into the community aspect of things and how you can really put your best self forward. So that's launching June 30th. I'm very excited about it and very happy to have shared it with Grenada first. I know Jamaicans are going to be a little bit like, why did you share it with Grenada first? No, I'm a social media person. So first things first, I know Miss MC mentioned no phones, but I cannot be here and Unleash Grenada is not trending on Twitter. That is totally unacceptable. So, before we even get any further, I'm going to ask everybody to just pop out your phones, whether it is you're going to take a selfie, or whether it is that you're going to take a picture of me on the stage, or whether it is that you want to capture something from yesterday, but we need to do a post right now. I'm encouraging everybody to do a post. I'm giving you 30 seconds. I don't want all the pictures of me. Take a selfie with somebody you just met. Yeah. I see one of our speakers over there taking a photo. We have over 100 people in this room. And there's no reason for Unleash Grenada to not be trending on Twitter right now. I see Bridgerton and Queen Charlotte and some other things trending. We really need to get Unleash Grenada trending. Yes, Minister. Same way, sir. Yeah, man. I give you the 20 more seconds. Hashtag Unleash Grenada. I want to see it on Twitter. Drop it on Instagram as well. Drop it on Facebook. We're intergenerational inside here, so Facebook is there as well. You don't have enough time for TikTok right now, so we can leave that out. If you want to drop it on LinkedIn, feel free to do so as well. But yeah, man, we'll have to get that trending. We can't, we're not work so. Now, today's presentation, I'm going to walk you through 5 key points. We're going to look at the state of digital globally, bringing some perspectives in terms of what's happening in that space. We're going to touch on what's happening home here in Grenada. We're going to take a look at marketing now, what's happening with marketing now. And of course, we're going to delve into branding in the digital space, and then we're going to close off with developing a brand strategy. Now, the state of digital global, and I want to bring this slide to you because sometimes when we think about marketing and branding, we become very microscopic. We think about our immediate circle. We think about the country that we live in. But let me break it to you that we have over 5 billion internet users, of which 4.76 billion are active social media users. What that means is you have access to billions of people around the world. Do not think about yourself as small, ever. We've seen content creators, we've seen businesses that have done so well as a result of thinking big and thinking beyond what is presented to them. And I want to share this with you because it should be motivating you to not only think about where you are. We're looking at people consuming content in so many different ways. We're looking at an average of 6 hours of people surfing the internet. We're looking at 3 hours average watch time, looking at the television, 2 hours surfing social media, and we're looking at people who are spending about 57 minutes on average listening to a podcast. But what's happening home in Grenada? We're looking at 97.9 thousand internet users with an internet penetration rate of 77%. We're looking at active social media users totaling 62% of that. We're also looking at a little decrease in Facebook and advertising ad reach because, guys, social media is annoying, and sometimes Facebook and the algorithm change, and then data protection happen, and then your ad's not really getting anywhere. So there's a little decrease happening right there. Look at Instagram. We're looking at over 40,000 Grenadans connected to Instagram. And interestingly, we're looking at LinkedIn, where the ad reach has increased, meaning more Grenadans are joining LinkedIn. Let me see the hands of people who are on LinkedIn inside here. Wonderful. And let me break it to you guys. LinkedIn is no longer a platform where you're in a jacket suit and a tie and everything is all formal. Based on what happened over the last 2 years, people have been sharing pictures of them puppy. People are sharing pictures of their marriage because what's happening is you are more than a professional. And professional in the traditional sense is changing. You're a mom, you are breastfeeding, you run a business, and that's what's happening with social media right now. So I'm actually not surprised that LinkedIn is actually doing pretty well here in Grenada. But all in all, marketing's getting spicier. I found that very interesting. By the way, I pay my Canva premium. I don't know why the sign is there. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on there. I don't know if it's the transition between, yeah, I pay my Canva premium. Now let's get a little better understanding of what's happening with the generations, because sometimes as creators, we create content and we feel that we need to create for this particular group only, right? In understanding the generation, let's look at Generation Alpha. Those are the people who were kind of just born the other day. And they are born in technology, and as such, they determine a lot in terms of what's happening and have such a very heavy influence on their parents, etc. We're looking at Generation Z, very, very firm in their values and belief. We're looking at millennials who were born during the emergence of technology, Generation X who are big on education, and of course our beloved baby boomers who are like turning 16 this year, who are very big on customer service. But in understanding the generation, it really brings into perspective how it is that people appreciate content or consume it in many different ways, which then better position every creator to bear that in mind. So you're creating something, you may want to think about, okay, then I have the young people over TikTok, so that's good. But I have some readers and some business people on LinkedIn, so how do I repurpose my content for that audience? Then you think about, okay, Instagram is this photo app. Well, you're trying to push video now. I tell you, things are changing all the time. You know, how do I position over there? But it's important for you to take this into consideration. And the reason why I wanted to delve into understanding the generation is because younger millennials and Gen Z are literally the generation we should be watching carefully and trying to see how best we can invest in. Because they are the ones determining the next steps for brands and the next steps for content that you are creating, because they understand themselves so much more and are very vocal about that. So pay keen attention to Gen Z and the younger millennials. I think they have a term for the younger millennials, which is zillennials, but I couldn't bother put that in there. Too much things are going on, man. So I try to, keep it there. I want to show you an ad that pretty much, how I get back to my full screen, folks. I don't know if I touched something here. Okay. I want to show you an ad to show marketing then, marketing now. Because remember, we're focusing on how things are changing. We're focusing on the generation. We're focusing on how you tap into different locals. We're focusing on how, we translate the creation of content and creativity. And I'm going to show you an ad to look at marketing then. I will go and discuss a little bit after.
Fresh new look.
Hi, guys. And some things do.
That's all it took. Yeah, man, think young, drink young. Imagine running this ad right now in 2023. Let's look at Pepsi now.
This is the Pepsi that your father drank. And his father drank before he met your grandmother. This is the first Pepsi on the moon.
What?
No.
Okay, fine. This might be the first Pepsi on Mars. This is the Pepsi for this model. And his mom. Hi, Cindy. Show him how it's done. This is the Pepsi that was right for Ray. And your Uncle Drew, who is
still breaking ankles.
This is the Pepsi that's back from the future. And back for one last ride. This is the Pepsi that Britney once popped. And this one is for the king of pop. This is the Pepsi for those who are forever fun. This is the Pepsi for every generation.
All right. We see a big difference in terms of the ads, right? By the way, I try to find like a lot of local advertising and stuff, and based on some of the creators that I'm connecting with already on Instagram, you guys are so amazing. I'm sure you can create some top quality content like this so I can pull in my presentation next time I come here. You guys are doing amazing. But I brought that up because I wanted you to look at how different the marketing is right now. We look at in the former days where you could objectify, you could just create some corny ways of advertising and it worked. And we're looking now where there's so much more to advertising, where there's purpose, there's storytelling, because in the second ad, you're seeing a connection of Pepsi across the generation versus the first ad where it's just Cindy Crawford looking hot. But there's Cindy Crawford in the second ad as well, which more than likely you probably saw her, but because of the purpose behind the ad a little bit more, that kind of stood out. Now, in marketing, now there's also a very heavy tourism influence happening in Grenada as well. We're looking at how local products, services, and visitors are all intertwined into this ecosystem. We're looking at digital media growth. As technology continues to advance, so too does marketing. And digital marketing has opened up so many opportunities for businesses and individuals in the wider community. But all in all, folks, one of the biggest factors that will set your business apart from any other business is your digital branding. And what exactly is digital branding? We're looking at the process of creating and conveying a company or person's identity, your values, your worth through channels that exist in an online platform. I did some stalking again, and I found Spice Island Beach Resort as a really good brand to show as an example that's capturing and using their online presence in a really good way. By the way, anybody here from Spice Island? Next time I come, I want a nice stay. But looking at Spice Island, we're looking at how they're using their social media. We're looking at how they're using their reviews that are coming in from, their guests and how they tie that back into their overall brand look and feel. We're looking at another really good example, Dr. Shenile Hazel from Trinidad. She's an award-winning cosmetic dentist who has dedicated her digital presence to also using it as a way of generating leads for her company, but also giving information to people, and she has it really cleaned and lined up, and it looks really good. One of my favorite local influencers back in Jamaica, Dr. Terry Carell Reed. By the way, somebody asking you to take a video right now. Who I can ask? Just pop out your phone, take a video, because I'm going to send it to her. Tell me when you're ready. Hi, Terry. I'm in Grenada right now. I'm doing a presentation, and because you're amazing and you're doing fantastic with your online presence, I decided to name drop you. And my friend is taking a video right now, and I'm talking about how amazing you are in terms of telling the story of your social media as well as your online presence. You have a little bit of family, but she don't tell everybody her business, so there's still some sort of privacy to that. She's an author, so that's positioned there as well. She's an event host, and she does that so well. But cultivating a community, she has a community called the TK Tribe, which is pretty much her people who support whatever it is that she's doing. And she's a good example of a local influencer. Big up yourself, Terry. Oh, she's well known in the OACS as well. Wow. There you go. There you go. I feel so well because she's Jamaican, There you go. Terry, hey! I give in to A. I hope to reach Terry's level one day. I want to be in the magazine as well. And of course, we have to give shout out to the sponsors. Digicel also has done a really good way in terms of bringing their communities together through the different channels. So we're talking about even utilizing their live chat. We're talking about how they use social media as well to bring people together. And I want to name drop Digicel in there. Now, let's get into the meat of the matter for you as to why you decided to register and show up here today. Because we're looking at branding in the digital space now and how you being a brand needs to translate well to what exists and how you are going to go forth and build a solid community. So whether you're a creative or an entrepreneur or you're a brand, you should understand that it's important to stand out in every single way. You get an opportunity to not only communicate your values and skill sets in a really great, immeasurable provision of platforms, but in achieving that as well, it goes back down to how you go about that. Now, in the digital space, it's important for you to tap into different mediums and tap into what works for you. I've seen where a lot of creators try to replicate and do things that other people do who may be well-resourced, and then they don't get an opportunity to fully untap their potential because they want to copy what somebody else is doing. Not saying, staying true to yourself, or not understanding the underlying value that you can bring as an individual. So remember the first thing I told you, you are a brand, and you have to untap that before you get into it. A strong digital brand is critical, people, for any business, creative, or industry. And I'm going to share with you 5 quick points as to why it's important. You build trust. Again, some stalking. I went on the Prime Minister's office Instagram, and I think he was perhaps the best person to use as my pictorial representation here, because in building a strong brand, you have to build trust. And a strong digital brand helps to establish credibility and trust with the community. Just yesterday, I was speaking to a couple of the other speakers and panelists, and we felt so inspired, hearing from your own Prime Minister, and being able to now see that translating on the official Prime Minister's page. It was kind of like, okay, that's true, because he spoke so well at the conference, and I'm seeing these posts on Instagram. So there's some degree of trust and belief in terms of what's happening. So you get to build trust. Visibility and reach. Mr. Killer with him over 1 million followers. I mean, who would want to ensure that you invest in reach and visibility as well? A strong digital brand can help you reach a wider audience by making it easier to be found online. So you don't want your real name to be Samantha Smith, and then your Instagram is Kitty32, and then your Twitter is Sam13. You have to sort it out. You have to bring some degree of cohesion to it. All right, folks? So this can lead to increased traffic in building your visibility. Increased traffic to your social media presence. your landing pages, as well as greater awareness for the products or services that you're positioning. We're also looking at building community. We're looking at a strong brand being able to bring people together, whether it is that you celebrate around a cause, whether it is that you are a really great dancer, whether it is that you make art and craft by using threads, you will find a community for whatever it is that you're creating, and it's really up to you to go back to these tenets of the visibility, building trust, to be able to get to building the community. Cohesive marketing. Yes, sir. Mr. Rodney, I hope to be a model as well. When you go on Rodney's Instagram, you realize that it brings you back to his site, where he obviously is in fashion, and there's some degree of media comms in the mix as well. And in building a cohesive marketing strategy, you have to ensure that everything comes back and ties back together. Big shout out to the Unleash crew, because from the first day I got an email, I saw the Unleash logo, and I was able to bring back the colors to the presentations that I'm seeing now, and the branding over there, so with the nice wording there, and everything was kind of in cohesion. So when it comes down to cohesive marketing, you want to ensure that as a creative, you also have that down as well. And of course, competitive edge. My good friend Ronnie is like, why am I on the screen? You know, but someone with strong digital brand is more likely to be perceived as innovative and up to date. You know, you're competing in a space now where, again, I showed you earlier some of the statistics with digital marketing and how branding looks now. And if you don't have any of that, your competitive edge is going to be on the low a little bit. But how do you create this strong digital brand now? You have to define your brand people. You have to understand what are your core principles, what's your mission. Not because you're an influencer that review fruit drinks mean you don't have a mission and a vision. Your mission and vision could be to help eliminate soda going in primary schools. Bring it back to you being somebody who review nutritional beverage, but your mission is there to help. And you say, okay then, in 5 months, I'm going to get this removed in 10 schools. And then you start tie it back. So don't think of yourself as just a little creator who cannot have some mission or values or vision for yourself. You have to identify your community as well. Who is your ideal audience? What are their needs and interests? By understanding that, it helps to create a framework to which you're going to communicate to your people. You also have to know who you want to speak to. What do you want to communicate? What are your preferred methods of communication? Some people may like blogging. Some people may like a video. Some people may like TikTok, you know, and there's so many different ways in which you can communicate to your community, but again, you have to know how. And you also have to think about frequency, because you have to show up. How often do you want to communicate to them? When you have all of that established, you have to have a content strategy. Don't look at this thing as just a little, you know, I get a brand partnership today, I'm going to post 3 reels, and I'm going to take 1 picture at the beach. No, what's the strategy behind that? Why are you posting? Why are you creating this strategy? How can you start scheduling? And social media has made it easier and easier and easier for people to truly make use of the platforms that you're also using to monetize and also create real impact. Now, in terms of some of the best practices based on some of the discussion points I touched on a while ago, of course, you know, you want to use good quality video and visuals to communicate your relevant message and brand. And good quality doesn't mean you need to have a big camera crew running and you capture, and then the editing have to be perfect and the color grading. No, because again, you have people like Majimbo who lay down in her bed and she takes some selfies and some videos and she throw them up, and she have brandies with fentanyl and chips. The girl that eat the chips and say, hi, if you have money, she. And she doesn't have like a big camera crew following her around, but she's being authentic and she's being real, versus somebody else like a Beyonce, who has some amazing visuals coming out and all of that. But I'm giving you that because don't always think of quality of content meaning perfect look, perfect feel, perfect color grading. You don't have to think about any of that. So you're also looking at consistency, and you're also looking at providing value to the audience, choosing the right platforms. You know, Again, I pay my Canva premium. I don't know why that's there. But you're looking at accessibility, a business focus. You're looking at visual first for Instagram and something that's more like a service storefront. You're looking at LinkedIn, where you can build your brand and personal branding. You're looking at Twitter, which is kind of a little bit questionable right now because we don't know what's going on over there, but you still can build a solid community. Sentiment analysis. You're looking at WhatsApp, which is a great connector of people. You're looking at YouTube, which is video-first experience and opportunity for monetization. You're looking at TikTok, where you can show some emerging value and expertise. And of course, with all of that, you still have some definitions to do. You have to define your sound, just like Lionheart. You have to show off, just like Sabrina. You have to track your analytics as well, because if you don't track your analytics, you're not going to get anywhere. Content is king, context is queen, and I believe that the throne is analytics, because that's where you're going to be able to capture information and send to people. My people, this is just my encouragement to you to go forth and create. You can scan that and connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Joel Namdakam. I was practicing. I was doing my phonics. D. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So much content, so much content. Terry Carell, I started following her during the pandemic. She blew up in the pandemic. She is amazing. All right, I'm trying to have you guys eat by 12:30. Watch all your time. You think we could do it? All year. Let's do this. We have about 45 minutes to get through this session. Can we make it? How are your bellies feeling? All right, so we want to bring on a dynamic speaker. Some of us met him last night, Mr. Justin Koo. Mr. Justin Koo will be speaking today on we just had that session. The business of creativity, legal considerations for protecting and profiting from intellectual property. We met him last night. He was amazing. Today he will be dynamic. All right, let's welcome Justin Koo to the stage. And Justin Koo will be followed by a panel discussion with Tanya Lawson. We met her yesterday, Simon Frederick, and this will be moderated by Rosanna John Mitchell. Justin left? Justin went to get some coffee. All right, and I want to encourage you guys, there's coffee, there's tea outside. We didn't take a break today? Well, I mustn't all it, we cannot afford to take one, okay? So if you have a moment, run outside and get a cup of coffee, but you cannot miss Justin's presentation. And Justin is here, all right? What have a man say? I just reached, Justin is here. All right, welcome Justin Koo on stage, everybody.
I mean, we'll see how we get through this. All right. Mic not? Okay, mic's on. Good morning, everybody. So I know we've been talking about a lot of the arts and we've been talking a lot about education. I want to put all of that together, but also bring it into the legal framework, because at the end of the day, we could do all these lovely things, but if we don't understand the legal framework in which we exist, we get absolutely nowhere. And more than that, we can actually end up in the pits of getting sued. So let's not get sued, right? So I want to take you through a really practical presentation today. The title is Legal Considerations for Protecting and Profiting from IP. And I want to take you through 5 things really quick. I know we're really short on time. Honestly, I could spend an entire year talking about this. When I studied some of this stuff in my master's, going through my PhD, I could tell you that I've committed about 12 years to this work, and that's not enough because there's still so much more to be done. So one word, or one phrase that I want you to hold on to, and I always tell my students, if you have to get something tattooed, 2 things you need to tattoo: contracts, due diligence, all right? You always need to do your due diligence. So what does due diligence mean? It just means doing your research before you engage in any project. It's the worst thing in the world, and I talk about this from an academic perspective, and I know that you will understand this from an artistic perspective as well. It's the worst thing that you start a project, and then somewhere through the middle of it or at the beginning of it, you realize either you're using someone else's idea and you don't know what to do, someone else has already done it and you get into an existential crisis, or you really don't like where it's going, so you make some changes, but then subconsciously end up copying someone else's thing. It happens to all of us. Whether we agree or disagree about the role of copyright law and the role of intellectual property and what it should protect and what it should not protect and what it should allow us to do and what it shouldn't allow us to do, the thing is that it's there, right? And it's not going anywhere. We might argue that AI is going to destroy intellectual property. They said that about the internet, and we're still here. So AI is just going to be incorporated into the copyright laws. It's just going to make it evolve. Of course, it's going to be very slow to evolve, and that's a problem. And for all of us, we need to know how to capitalize on that slowness of intellectual property. But at the end of the day, the intellectual property is what allows us to commercialize. That's the property right that underlies all of your works. And whether we want to think about the fact that we have property in our artistic works, and I know some of us might disassociate the idea of property and that someone could commoditize my creation because it's something very spiritual to us. You know, I consider my book my baby, right? That's my spiritual baby because I put, 4 years of work into that and then an additional 2 years when it was getting published. I don't want someone, I only get 5% of the royalties from that book, by the way, so it's not like you're making, a bankroll from publishing or anything like that. So it's very different for artists because you could capitalize on the works you create in a lot more detail because the industries are shaped in a way where you can benefit directly from your work now if you know what you're doing exactly, right? Whereas in traditional industries like publishing, even the music industry to a large extent still, the creators get very little. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how to get more out of your creations. And this is what I'm saying, due diligence is a starting point. Research. Figure out what's already in the space. Figure out what you're doing. I know you may not know the end product at the beginning, but do your due diligence, make sure, am I copying? What is my intention here? Do I want to build on someone's work? Am I creating something from scratch? If I think it's novel, do the basic research and see, has anyone done something similar? What else exists in this space? When you understand that, then you can really start understanding the parameters of your project, where you can go with it, what you can do with it. Yeah? So stemming from the due diligence, I have a checklist here. For those of you who attended the lecture yesterday, this is reinforcement. For those who were unable to attend, this is your checklist. So take a snap. The reason I have the ducks here, the saying, get your ducks in a line? That's what we're doing. We're getting our intellectual property ducks in a line. So if you look at the image here, you see one duck at the top, you see one upside down underneath here. Don't have your ducks all over the place. Because if your ducks are out of line, you are opening yourself up to legal liability, you're opening yourself up to financial problems. So our checklist, the first thing. What is your product or service? What are you offering? What have you created? You need to understand that in the first place. If you don't know what you created, then I'm talking to the wrong people. You know what you've created, or you know what you will create. Yeah? The second thing is, well, when you understand what product or what service you're offering, what intellectual property rights are relevant? Is it a copyright? Is it a patent? Is it a trademark? Is it a design right? And I know that we don't have design rights in Grenada as yet, but the Honorable Attorney General yesterday notified us that there are lots of things in play, new laws being introduced, revisions to existing laws, so those things are coming. So what IP rights are relevant? You need to establish, and this is where the IP education is really important. I don't have time to talk about all the rights today, but basically understanding what a copyright is, what a patent is, what a trademark is, I think is essential. I'm hoping that, and I'm putting some pressure here on Orlando, bring me back, let me do a workshop on intellectual property for a week, right? That way I could stick some diving in as well and get to see all the diving sites in Grenada. But yeah, no, I'm happy to come back and talk more about IP and do a more in-depth workshop on intellectual property rights specifically. So what IP it is that you have. When you establish what IP is relevant to your product, your good, your service, it's then really critical for you to figure out, do you actually own the IP that you think you own? Right? Just because you've created something doesn't mean you own it. And I make the point that, have any of you read section 28, subsection 5 of the Copyright Act of Grenada? Yes? No? If you haven't, then you're in problems already, because knowledge is power. Yeah? What does Section 28.5 tell us? And I'm just going to paraphrase. If you are an employee and you create in the course of your employment, you are not the owner of that copyright work. So no matter how much heart and soul you pour into that, no matter what droit d'auteur laws in France and Belgium and the Netherlands and etc. tell us, you don't own that copyright work in Grenada. So I suggested last night to the Attorney General that that is something that needs to be revised and amended, because that particular provision is out of sync with the one-year plan that Orlando presented to us yesterday, right? So that needs to change. And there's some other things in the Copyright Act that needs to change. But it's very important for you to establish, do you own the IP in the work or the works that you are using or employing in your business setup, right? If you're using the rights of someone else, you're using someone else's trademark, do you have their permission? If you are building on someone else's work, do you have their permission? Do you need to get a license? And if the answer to the question is that you don't know, then you need to find out, that's one. And when you don't know, you need to get help. And that's the one big thing that I always recommend to people. Get help at the beginning before it's too late. I have many clients that come to me when it's too late. When I give proactive talks like this, you know, we all laugh and clap and all of that stuff, and then at the end, if we go home and don't take it on, they come right back running, what you could do for me at this point. And often as well, I'm sorry, you didn't take me on at the beginning, you actually have to rebrand everything. You have to start over your whole brand. And I've had clients, big products, in supermarkets, for example. I'll give you a story. They have a brand, they came to me to get a trademark organized, and guess what? Do the search, found out that the graphic artist just lifted the logo straight off the internet. The search clerk actually showed it to me. Story gets better. Turns out that the graphic designer is the person's sister-in-law. Family bacchanal start, obviously. I didn't get involved in that part, right? So now I had to work with this person to reorganize their whole IP setup, do an IP audit for them, get them to get a new logo, then do all the searches. And they've obviously been in the supermarket. Good thing it wasn't the name, it was just the logo. So it was easy for them to kind of re-engineer the logo. But they had invested thousands of dollars in printed labels already. So on top of now having to pay for the service, getting a new logo done, and getting the trademark, they then had to go through a whole process of rebranding, which is obviously, as you understand, as creatives, a very tedious process. You design an aesthetic, your brand is reflective of that aesthetic, and now you have to change that. Don't be like that person. Be more proactive and understand upfront what it is you have. So, do you need a license? If you're using other people's works in your project, whatever that may be, try and figure out how much am I using. Am I going to get away not by fair use? There's no fair use in Grenada. We have fair dealing, right? Do I come within one of the exceptions of copyright law? Or do I come within one of the exceptions of trademark law? And if the answer to that is no, then you need to go get permission, which means get a license. Yeah? So from that, you then need to figure out, okay, I'm in the clear, all the things that I have in front of me are my rights, I have control over it. What's my commercialization plan? Am I going to exploit it myself? Am I going to send it off to someone else? Am I going to do a franchise deal? Is it going to be a distribution deal? How do I license my intellectual property? That's way too technical a topic for me to go through in like the 5 minutes that I probably have left. So again, this is why I need to come back. But you need to have your commercialization plan. You need to have your contracting plan. You need to know how to, offer your rights and what rights you're actually going to give. How you're going to word that in your contract. How you're going to decide what it is you're going to allow the third party to do with your rights. So, we know what types of IP exists. We know what IP we have. Let's figure out how we structure our own intellectual property. And the reality is that the majority of us don't just have one type of IP in play. We have multiple types of IP in play. So our core product or service is usually the copyright work, the painting, the film, the photograph. It could be also you've invented something, a pattern, you've invented a dress, you invented a carnival costume, a song. That's my core product. We might think that's the most important bit, but in reality, I don't say that there's a most important bit. They're all equally important. So you have your product or your service that you're selling or that you're offering for sale. No matter how good that product is, if you don't package it properly, no one is going to buy it. So the packaging is very important. And I know some of my colleagues talked about it yesterday in terms of branding. Branding is key. But before we get to branding, the story, the aesthetic, the vibe that is attached to that is what sells your product. Yeah? You need to convince people that my product is not just good, my product is something that you need. And you need it because this is going to, vibe with you. It's going to reflect you. It's going to be part of you. You need to convince people to buy that product. Why do you have an Apple phone versus an Android when Apple phones are way more expensive? There's something about the feeling about Apple or the vibe of Apple that resonates with certain people. And I say that because I'm an Apple fanatic, and I know that it's way more expensive, but I buy it anyway, right? Yeah, we might talk about the technical abilities of it and the ease of use and all of that, and seamlessness. Great, that's technology, that's the core product. But there's also something about the Apple experience. Why is it that you buy a Christian Louboutin heel? That's not the only shoe that has a red sole, but there's something about that lacquered red sole that convinces us that we need it, yeah? Or the Louis Vuitton handbag, right? You could get better leather handbags that look the exact same for 1/10 of the price coming out of South America. I've been to Ecuador, I've seen it, yeah? But no, we want the Louis Vuitton handbag. What is it about these brands that we want, all right? So wedding rings. If I told you that it came in a Robin's Egg blue box, what brand is that? Tiffany. There's nothing different about a Tiffany ring versus a ring that's made by a jeweler. They could make the exact same ring in what is called a Tiffany setting, and you pay maybe 100th of the price less. Yeah? So there's something about that Robin's Egg blue box that makes us want to buy the product. So when we capture that vibe and that aesthetic in our works, in our products, in our services, we need to stick that into our branding. And that's the reason why the red circle is the external bit. It's the first type of IP that we interact with. Before we even get to see the product or use the product or experience the product, what we experience in the first place is the logo, the name. And that's why it's really critical that we organize our trademarks alongside all of the other things that we're doing. So for all of you artists out there, head down to the IPO, get to know Mr. Robert Branch well, and file your trademark. Yeah? And it's something that you can do on your own. You don't necessarily need a lawyer. I mean, I don't recommend doing it on your own if you don't know what you're doing. Do some research, right? Get a lawyer, get an IP consultant, but trademark. Trademark your name, trademark your brand, trademark the name of your product, right? All of this is, again, we have limited time, so can't take you through the whole realm of it, but branding is key. If you don't have a good, solid brand, no matter how good your product is, it's not going to sell. Remember also, your brand is what takes your product further. When people don't know you and they don't know what quality you bring to the table, your brand is going to tell them that story and that message. So when somebody sees your t-shirt with your brand on it or sees your artwork with your brand on it, they don't know you, they know nothing about you, but they know that that name has quality. That name has significance, that name has meaning, right? So all of our creators, creative persons who came up here and talked about their craft and their trade, when you hear their name, you don't even need to see their performance, you don't need to see their film, you just know that it's of a certain quality and you want to see it. That's the point we want to get to. That doesn't matter what you create. It's because it's under this brand, we want it. So someone in the audience yesterday asked about valuing IP, and I just want to say 2 quick words on it. Valuation is a technical subject that is best left for your accountants. And when I say accountants, your forensic accountants, the ones who work at Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers, etc. This is a resource that we are severely lacking in the Caribbean. It's apparently being done to an extent in Jamaica, just recently started this year. But there's not a whole lot on the region going on with this. So 3 ways for you to do basic valuation of your work. What did it cost you to make? How much money came out of your pocket? And how much time did you spend? Because your time is your most valuable commodity. You don't get your hours back. So how many hours did you commit to it? What's the value of your hour? So is your hour worth $500? Is your hour worth $1,000? What is your time worth? That's the first bit. How much came out of your pocket? How much did the materials cost? What did it cost to produce this piece? That's the first way to value IP. Simplest way. The second way is, you might spend 10 weeks doing something and the market doesn't value it. And that happens. And this is why the branding becomes important. When your branding gets stronger, those things don't matter. But the reality is at the start, the market may not want to pay what you spent to create. So understanding the demand for your work is key, and this is why they were talking yesterday about create things that are not necessarily, change everything to be specifically wanted, but engage in a situation where what you create, there's a market or there's a demand for it. So what the market is willing to pay, that's another way to value. And then the third way is a kind of in between, the income approach. How much have you made from works in the past? What do you expect to make off of your products, your services, your art, your film, your photographs, right? So it's kind of like, annual earnings divided up by the amount of works you did, that sort of kind of computations. And again, like I said, let's leave that for the accountants. I have 3 law degrees, and persons who do law are not good at math, so let's leave that out, right? But the income approach, how much you expect to earn, how much have you earned in the past? And the final bit before we wrap up and we start the panel discussion, contract, right? The other tattoo that you need to get. So what I've outlined here for you are some of the key terms that you have to have in every single contract that you deal with if you're involving IP in your contract. Ownership. Who owns the IP? If you're creating something with someone else, somebody is paying you to create an artistic work, you're getting commissioned, etc., you need to have very clear in the contract who owns the IP. Just because you authored the work, you painted it, you composed it, you danced it, doesn't mean that you own it. The contract needs to dictate that, because other than that, I guarantee you're going to end up in a bacchanal about who owned this, right? So ownership. Be just very clear. Have that conversation. I know it's an uncomfortable conversation most times, but it's better to be uncomfortable than to be angry at the end. So who owns it? Payment. How much are you getting paid? Don't wait until the end to figure out that. Say it at the beginning. Are you getting a lump sum payment up front? Are you going to get lump sum payment with royalties? Are you getting a balance of payments, so part now, part later, part when you complete? What is it? Just be very specific at the very beginning as to what it is, how much money is involved. And I know people start to get turned off when they hear about money talk at the beginning, right? That's my experience. But again, the problems come in when you didn't discuss how much money is being paid. And I'll give you a story. Somebody composes a song for a performer. Performer then performs in a competition. Performer places in said competition. There was no discussion about money, upfront, royalties, prize money, none of that stuff, right? They fall out, they're no longer friends, right? So lost opportunity, now you can't work with that person again. Especially because Grenada is so small, chances are if you fall out with one person, you're falling out with their whole clique, and then you isolate yourself from the whole island, right? So let's avoid that problem. Moral rights. 2 moral rights traditionally, your right to integrity and your right to attribution. So attribution means to have your name put on the work. This is waivable in most Anglo copyright countries, meaning in the contract you would normally see that they would waive the right to attribution so that they don't have to put your name on the work. Push back on that. Make sure that they have to put your name on the work, because your name is your legacy, and more than that, your name might be your brand. So you want to have your brand on that product, yeah, or that service. So the other thing is integrity right. Also push back on that. The integrity right protects you from people taking your work and changing it. So let's say I create a film and I license it to somebody else, or I assign it to them. I want to ensure that my moral right integrity remains intact, because that way they can't chop up my film and make a mix and match out of it. They can't recolor it. They can't change the context. They can't use it for political speech, all of these kinds of things. You want to command and dictate how your work is used and how your work is viewed. Right? So the moral rights clause in your contract covers that. You want to limit the uses that you give other people. So if other persons or third parties you're dealing with, you want to specifically focus what they can and can't do in very much a granular detail. Go down to the T. Know your exclusive rights under the Copyright Act and say what they can do and what they can't do. Warranties. And this might not be so much for the creators, this might be for the persons dealing with the creators. You want to ensure that when you ask someone to create a work for you, that they independently create that work and they're not going to copy it from somebody else, because guess what? Who's going to get sued? Not the creator, person who's using it. So this one is maybe not so much at the creators, but on the other side. Indemnities. If something goes wrong in the contract and you get sued, you might want to pass on that liability to somebody else, so indemnities are important. It's kind of like insurance. If something goes wrong in the agreement, who is going to be responsible? Your indemnity is to ensure that you are not going to be responsible. So if you've created a work and it's been abused or misused by the third party, you want to limit your liability. You don't want to be held responsible for whatever goes on. Yeah? standard of creation. If you're contracting with somebody, set what the exact obligation is. What exactly needs to be created? What standard does it have to be created against? And this is getting a little finicky now, because how do we dictate the standard of artistic creations? But usually it's just about professional setups. You expect, let's say you're making a song, you want that song to be recorded using professional equipment of this standard and delivered in this format. Because I could tell you what also happens is you ask for work to be created, and then what you get at the end of the day is not what you expected or something that you can't use. Be specific what you want at the end as a physical end product. And then the last one, dispute resolution. I know we don't want to talk about this because we don't want to have any bad vibes and preempt any sort of negative actions or behaviors, but things break down, things happen. Court is not always the answer. Court is probably the wrong answer, because you want to maintain professional relationships. Place done small. Court time, long, expensive, and very much frustrating. So avoid the courtroom by having dispute resolution clauses inserted. Use alternative dispute resolution measures. Go to things like negotiation, mediation. In the worst case scenario, arbitration. And I want to pitch here WIPO's arbitration services. They have arbitration services for intellectual property disputes. And it's very much affordable. Out of Trinidad and Tobago, the IPO there, they have a special agreement with WIPO. I believe that you may be able to make use of that, so you get access to it at a discounted rate. Yeah? So let's avoid the court system. Let's avoid fighting up in court and making a messy battle and airing all your dirty laundry in public, and just get it sorted amongst yourselves, low-key on the side. Work it out. Yeah? But again, if all the parties know all the things up front, then this doesn't become an issue, because this only becomes an issue when everybody's unclear about what's going on. So with that, that's my presentation. Thanks for listening. And if anybody has any questions or anything like that, well, I know my details gone already, but yeah, feel free to contact me. I'm on Twitter. I tweet a lot of IP stuff, so follow me there if you want more IP stuff. And you can shoot me questions there as well. And if you want more personal stuff, email me.
Thank you, Justin. Wealth of information. Thank you so much. Joining Justin for the final panel discussion before lunch, we want to invite Simon Frederick, Tanya Lawson, and moderating the session, attorney at law, Rosanna John Mitchell. And if you're following your time, 20 minutes?
You'll see. No, I'm gonna tell you what.
I might give you an extra 5.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. You all sound really hungry.
Yeah.
So I understand that this is a presentation standing between you and lunch. However, I promise you that this will be a very nourishing session. And if it doesn't live up to that standard, you can sue me. All right. Dr. Koo, thank you very much for your enlightening presentation. And I'd like to start with you. As an attorney at law, a question that I get a lot is, can my ideas be protected? Can people thief my ideas, as we say colloquially? Can ideas be protected, and how can we foster a collaborative and open creative environment among creatives?
So that's a great question. I want to answer the second one first. Yes, your ideas can be stolen. So you need to be careful when you're in the conception phase, when you're coming up with the core idea, not to share that too much with anybody. So I'm going to answer this in a roundabout way and get back to the first part of the question. So when you have ideas for new projects, be careful who you share it with. If you are going to share it with anybody, remember again, contract. Non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. Have an NDA agreement. Sign an NDA with the party you're sharing that information with, because if they take the idea and run away with it, you sue them for breach of contract. You cannot protect an idea on its own. Copyright only protects ideas that have been expressed, when it's been written, when it's been recorded, when it's been sung, when it's been filmed. If it hasn't been recorded, it's not protectable in that sense. For ideas and patterns, it's about the invention. So you have to have invented something that has to be, in essence, really made tangible or recorded in the form of being written down as well, because your patent application has to be written down. So the idea in itself is not protectable in most cases. It's the expression of the idea. Yeah? So don't share your ideas, even if you really trust that person. It could be your mother, your father, your brother, your neighbor. Don't trust them. NDA for everybody.
Oh, God. All right, thank you. My second question is for Tanya. Tanya, I know that you're the Director of Marketing at AudioMac, which is a youth-driven platform. What challenges have you seen dealing with young entrepreneurs who may not know about how to protect their IP rights?
A lot of the issues we have, and I actually was dealing with one this morning, is that our artists sees the amount of plays or spins they got on our platform, and they're looking for the money. The thing is that they never registered that song. Sometimes a producer may come in and register that song, and the artist never made an agreement with them. Some of these artists, like I guess because they're going through struggles or whatever the case may be, they'll sign over their rights for like almost next to nothing, and then later on realize the song does well, and now they can't collect anything. So sometimes they try to come for us, and we're like, we never put it up. You guys gave it to us. So that's something they have to dispute between their label and the producers. So a lot of times they look to us like, yo, can you help us? Can you help us? Can you help us? We can't do anything with that. Because at the end of the day, we're like, you give us the product, we're going to do our job and just push it out there. The most you could do is give us a DMCA, tell us to take it down, and you guys deal with the dispute. But a lot of times, a lot of these artists, in which he's absolutely right, a lot of these artists don't know, come prepared. Because I hate saying this, but we can't, like a lot of these people at the labels and these things, they do not care. Their job is to go out there and push and compete with each other to see who's gonna get the most plays, the better artists out there, the best this, the best that. And if your stuff is not put intact, you'll realize you come out of this with no money. But a lot of these artists, that's what they're going through right now.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Tanya. And Simon, I know that you're a multidisciplinary artist and that you live in a far more advanced economy than Grenada, some may argue. What challenges have you seen in terms of protecting your intellectual property? I imagine you have different types.
Yeah, it's a great question. Firstly, I think the challenge is that as creatives, people want to make work, yeah, and you get excited about making work. But you're also excited about the opportunity for someone to give you the opportunity to make work. And usually the opportunity to make work becomes a problem because that's the only thing people think about. They think about the opportunity, but they're not thinking about business. Yeah? So I always say when it comes to art, the way that I think about art is art and commerce. Those two things have to go simultaneously. Yeah? I don't believe in being a poor, starving artist. Yeah? I don't believe anyone should be a poor, starving artist. Yeah? It's not something that it's an ethos, but it's not reality. Yeah? You should be paid for your art. But I think that a lot of the time what happens is that, for example, for myself, photographers, I'm looking at two over there who've become good friends now. But photography, for example, people usually don't set up the contracts for their photography at the beginning. Yeah, so clients think that, okay, I'm paying you for your photography, so I own those photographs. Okay, that actually isn't the case. But there's not a lot of photographers who actually know to set out their contracts. So what is the contract? The contract is how long is that photograph is going to be used for, in what territories it's going to be used, yeah? What is it going to be used for, in advertising, in promotion, in whatever it is, yeah? All of these things have a different monetary value, but you have to sort those out in the contract. In film, for example, if I sell one of my shows to Netflix, I don't own the license, okay? Because Netflix owns a license on all of its shows, yeah? If they acquire one of my shows that I've made previously, then the license always remains with me. So there is basically, it's depending on what I do, and there are many things that I do, it's very complicated. But the point is that I have to understand that I have to have my lawyers in place or my business affairs managers in place that look after my licenses and that I'm making sure that my licenses are assigned to all the projects that I do.
All right, thank you. So Dr. Koo, I'm back to you now.
Yeah.
In terms of protection, is it the role of the government? How can the government, through laws and policy, protect or help creators protect their work? What best practices have you seen?
So I think the first step in terms of the government's role in ensuring intellectual property protection is to ensure that the laws are as up-to-date as possible. So that's the first thing, because there are lots of international treaties out there that need to be acceded to ensure that the protection that is offered to the local persons or the persons who are creating works in that space, that territory, of the international equivalent. Because what tends to happen is that we fall behind in the region where we don't stay up to date with the laws. So things that are being protected in other countries or rights that are afforded in other countries, we don't have the benefit of in our own territory. So if we go to the US, we go to the UK, that kind of thing, we get different levels of protection as opposed to here. So I'll use an example. In Grenada, the length of protection for copyright works is currently still at 50 years. Yeah? Most other territories, it's heading upward. It's up to 70. In some places in the US, for some types of works, it's 95. In some countries, back in the day, before the EU came together and started harmonizing the laws, they had 90. But 70 is the international standard. We're at 50 in a lot of Caribbean countries. So, for example, just updating the laws in that sense is one key area. The second key area is stopping the process of cutting and pasting laws from the US, cutting and pasting laws from the UK. We need to create indigenous laws for ourselves that are designed for our people. But there's a caveat. Just because we created it for us doesn't mean it's going to work. And I use the example of works of Mass in Trinidad and works of Carnival in Grenada. I don't think that provision necessarily achieves what it was meant to achieve. And having said that, I think we need to be careful what we legislate for. We really do need to do a deep dive from a theoretical level and a practical level as to what we need, what it is we want it to achieve, and ensure that the language reflects that. Because I think the works of Carnival, works of mass provision is too complicated, it's very narrow, and it only protects a very particular type of performance. It's not a more expansive level of protection. So, long answer to a simple question, legislate better, ensure the legislation is up to date, ensure the legislation is fit for purpose. I think that's the role of the government. The role of the creator in all of this is to push your government to reflect your needs. When there's stakeholder consultations, everybody needs to respond, and a collective response is always best. So get together, formulate your ideas, put them together, get a coherent whole, and then push that to the government. Don't have multiple voices in different areas, chatting different things. You need to have a collected, concerted front. But if you don't make the push for the change, there's no incentive on the government's end. So you do need to put pressure on your government to legislate for you.
All right, thank you. So my following question is for Simon, it's for Tanya, whichever of you prefer to answer it, leading on from what Dr. Koo indicated in terms of advocacy. What is the role of professional or professional creative organizations in advocating and pushing for protection?
I mean, see, I work for a DSP, so for us, it's not our role, it's your role. You're supposed to do that as an artist. You're supposed to come prepared. If you come to me, I'm assuming you know everything, you cross your T's and dot your I's. That's why I stress to everyone, have great management, have a good team. If you have a good team, your team would know to make all those steps before you even get to the label side or even get to the DSP side. Again, I stress, with those people in corporate, they do not care. You're a product to them. So once you come to them, they're looking at it like, oh, this is what we need to do. We're assuming you cross your T's and dot your I's. So we're just gonna go out there and push your music to the masses. So I don't think I'm like the best
so you're basically saying
to answer it. Because I'm looking at it like, oh, this is a great artist. You did what you're supposed to do. So now I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do. But when it starts getting so technical where they don't own the right to this, they never signed the publishing deal, Maybe sometimes it happens a lot with the artists in Jamaica. They may do a certain things with the producer in Jamaica, and then that producer may come to the States and sign it over to another person. So when it start getting messy, a lot of those labels just wash their hands because they'll be like, you know what, it's too many laws in place. There needs to be like one uniset thing so we understand it. You sold the rights to this person, you sold the rights to another person in the UK, and then you coming over here and doing it this way. So guess what? We want no parts of it. So I know with me, when it start getting complicated, I'm good. Good.
Okay. I think, based on that, I think that it's really good to join trade organizations and bodies. I think that I recommend that, especially as independent artists or creatives. If you're an independent illustrator, join the International Illustrators body, whatever that is. If you're a photographer, join the Association of Photographers. Yeah? Join trade bodies. You know, if you're a filmmaker, join the international bodies. I mean, you know, both the Academy at the Oscars and BAFTA allow international people or non-domicile people to join as internationals. Yeah, join. Why? These things happen. You have access to lawyers, right? You have access to legal help from the associations who can help you with these things. And you know, going back to what you said, I've had friends who have had situations where they signed a contract, they wrote a TV series, for example. They signed a contract, but it was a work for hire contract. Okay, and it wasn't a contract that was giving them the right of authorship over their work. But because they came to me, I pointed them to certain lawyers, they were able to go back and get their rights given back to them retrospectively. So it can happen if you know the right lawyers, if they know the right people, and they have the power to do so.
Okay, thank you. So I'm being prompted that it's time to wrap up. So I'll ask
Otherwise
each of
you're going to get sued, right?
Yes. For your parting words, what's one thing that you would want everybody to leave with in terms of what insight you have to offer? I think for Dr. Koo, it's contract, but I'll give you the opportunity to say it yourself.
So other than contract, and understanding what IP rights you have, doing your IP audit, being the due diligent master, my closing word is you have to enforce your IP. If you don't enforce your IP, no one is going to do it for you. So you have to manage it. You have to be the police for your IP. And unless you're doing that, watching where your work is going, where your work is being used, no one is going to want to do that for you. If you don't do it yourself, pay someone to do it for you. There are services out there that manage your IP. There's one I think called IP Watch, for example, and they just monitor the use of your works online. If you don't do it, no one's going to do it for you because it's a civil right, it's not a criminal right. So the government can't sue somebody on your behalf, like bring a case on your behalf or anything like that. You have to bring your litigation or your enforcement. Yeah.
Oh, for me, I'm talking for the musicians. Get a great manager, get a good team, and make sure you have a lawyer.
I'm just reinforcing what they've said. Basically, it's the same thing, you know, as Justin has said. Contracts. Don't do any business without a contract. Simple as that.
All right. Thank you very much, panelists.
Yes.
It's 12:27. Nobody's getting sued today. All right, before you go for lunch, I want to make this quick announcement. Remember that lady from Digicel yesterday? And we thought there was going to be a gift under your chairs? Well, at the end of the day, there will be a gift. Digicel is giving away a brand new, wait for instructions, man. A brand new iPhone 14 Pro. There is a criteria though. You must be registered with the Office of Creative Affairs. And I need you to visit the Digicel booth and drop off your business card. It could, screenshot your Instagram, I don't know. All right, so at the end of the day, Digicel will be giving out, we'll be giving away a brand new iPhone 14 Pro Max, all right? So enjoy your lunch and see you back here at 1:25.